What's up guys, Chaos Shinobi here. This is What If Naruto Has a Time Bloodline. Summary: Naruto gains the abilities to manipulate time itself. He uses this newfound ability to save his family, but there are a few unforeseen costs to his actions. He is no longer Naruto Uzumaki and no goes by Yoko. Chapter 1. Lightning flashed ominously through the night sky. Two men stood staring at each other, stood unblinking at each other. Red eyes fixed on the yellow, both unfazed by the rain beating down on them. The surrounding landscape had been leaved, hiding all of its former glory, all its former beauty. Now what remained was ash and rubble as the rains put out the fires. Both young men look as if they had almost reached their limits. Both men covered in injuries. Sasuke's left arm was broken, hanging uselessly at his side, and Naruto's, had his right eye closed, it had been sliced by a kunai, leaving him blind in that eye. The young man with blonde hair, blue eyes finally smiled, but it was his normal cheerful smile. It was a smile full of regret, pain, and sorrow. Why bother? I am going to kill you, then I will destroy the village that gained so much from my pain. From Itachi's pain, Sasuke said, his voice full of venom. You know you are still my best friend, but I can't let you do that, and that is why I will be the one to end this, Naruto said, as he got back into his stance ready to end the battle. One of his shadow clones vanished, returning Naruto to the sage mode. Sasuke readied himself for the next attack. That both knew this would be the last bout. Sasuke knew that Naruto had a trick up his sleeve. He always had one more trick up his sleeve, even in the most desperate of times. But Sasuke wasn't going to give Naruto the chance. He charged in, his hand covered in lightning, and he struck Naruto in the chest. But Naruto took hold of his arm and he couldn't get free. Blood ran down Naruto's mouth as a smirk crossed his lips. Goodbye Sasuke, Naruto said. He still couldn't believe it. After all they had been through, he still had to fight Sasuke. After all the fighting, Sasuke still wanted him dead, to destroy everything they had fought so hard to protect. He couldn't believe it. He didn't want to believe it. He had just enough for one last attack, and by the looks of it so did Sasuke. He pumped the last of his chakra into his Rasengan, but it wasn't his normal Rasengan. It was one that Sasuke had yet to see, and he hoped this would be enough to turn the tide in his favor. As Sasuke charged his Chidori and the two shinobi charged each other, their eyes fixed on the other. The two jutsu collided. There was a blinding light and the two shinobi were blasted away from each other. Naruto got back to his feet, his left eye bleed profusely as he ripped a jagged piece of rock from it. His right eye fell on Sasuke, who lay on the ground, his right arm shot and a part of his chest missing. How do you do it, Naruto? Fight for people that you hated? How can you fight for those who hate you? Sasuke asked weakly. I do it so they will see me as something more than a monster. I don't fight for the ones who hate me, I fight for my friends, for my comrades. I would do anything for them. I would have done anything for you, he said seriously, but something happened that Sasuke did not expect. Naruto smiled. I know I told you that I would die with you. That will have to wait. There is still one more thing I need to take care of, then I promise that I will meet you again. What are you going to do? Become Hokage? The man who killed the treacherous Uchiha, he said weakly. No, I am not fit to become Hokage. I couldn't even save you, so how can I protect a village? He said smiling. I have to release the jutsu. Dobi, you really are an idiot, Sasuke said smiling. I guess some things never change, Naruto said smiling down at his fallen friend. His gaze fell on the tree and he made a hand sign to release the jutsu. As the pods opened up and his eyes opened up in horror, he couldn't believe it. He had failed them. Naruto-kun. His eyes fell on Hinata. She had already begun to change into a Zetsu. He walked up to her and placed his right hand on her chest, but it didn't work. He couldn't reverse the effects of the jutsu. He didn't have the chakra. He tried again and again, but it didn't work no matter how many times he tried. He felt a hand place across his cheek. He looked into her face. She smiled softly. It's okay, Naruto-kun. I will find a way to change you back. I will figure something out. It's okay, Naruto-kun. Will you do me a favor? She asked softly. What? He asked, rubbing her cheek. I don't want to live like this, she said just as softly. You won't have to. I will find something that will change you back, Naruto said, but as he looked at her he saw she was still slowly changing. Tears running down his cheeks, she reached up and wiped them softly. Naruto, please, don't let me become one of those things. Naruto closed his eye. I can't. Please, Naruto-kun, I love you, and if you feel anything at all for me, please do this for me. A small black orb formed in his hand and he kissed her as the truth-seeking ball hit her in the chest. He held her close as she died. Naruto, he heard someone whisper behind him and a hand on his shoulder. Naruto, let's get out of here. He turned to see Sakura. Naruto, do what to change all of this? Make it so none of this happen? Do you want to save your friends? Kurama asked. How can I? Naruto asked. It's easy with the Rinnegan. I can't promise what will happen, but what do you have left to lose? All your friends will be the same as the Hyuga girl, and by the time we figure out how to reverse the jutsu it will be too late to save any of them. Kurama said. Naruto didn't want to believe it, but he knew deep down that Kurama was right. What is the catch? Well, if we change the course of history, who knows, but there is one thing I am sure of: we will take the place of either you or place yours. Naruto finished. Can I save my family? Yes, Kurama answered simply, but my chakra won't be enough. You will need the other to aid you. Naruto looked over at the other Baijiu. Will you help me? They all nodded. As they started pumping chakra into him. Then what are you waiting for, you overgrown furball? Naruto said, smiling. His eyes started spinning like crazy. It felt like he was being ripped from his body. The pain was nearly unbearable. The events of his life flashed before him, and then everything went black. The sky was ominous. Dark clouds blanketed the sky. Rain pouring down, lighting filled the sky. As a young boy opened his eyes, he sat up holding his head. It felt as if it was being split in two. Kurama, where are we? He asked, but there was no answer. Kurama? He called out again, but there was no reply. He picked up the Kyuubi's chakra. He quickly rushed off in the direction of his friend. So many thoughts rushed through his mind as he ran. The first was how Kurama got released from him and he was still alive, and the second was why he was so slow. He looked down at his hands. They were tiny. His strides were much smaller as well. He slowed down and found a river, and he looked down into his reflection, and he was a child no older than 4. His right eye was Sasuke's Rinnegan and his left eye was a Mangekyo Sharingan. He looked down at his palms, and it contained both tattoos, the symbols of both Indra and Asura. 5 clones appeared beside him, and he sent them off to find out what was going on while he sat down to think. Panicking wouldn't get him anywhere. The last thing he remembered was his fight with Sasuke, but he didn't know who had won. It was nightfall when he retrieved the memories from his clone, and with it he came to 2 conclusions. One, he had been sent to an alternate dimension, or he was sent back in time and his presence caused things to change. If only Kakashi-sensei was here, he would know what was going on. He always seemed to have the answers. He knew one thing: it wouldn't be good if he walked around looking so much like Minato's son, even though he didn't know if he was or wasn't anymore. So he used a quick transformation jutsu, giving him brown hair, and he lost the whisker marks. He closed his right eye to save chakra, and it seemed he had the ability to activate and deactivate the Sharingan in his left eye, unlike Kakashi, who had been unable to deactivate his Sharingan. He would need as much chakra as he could save, since he didn't know how much of strain it would put on this new body of his. He took a deep breath before getting to his feet and just started walking with nowhere to go. It wasn't long before he heard a commotion. He decided to check it out. He found 3 young shinobi and a much older man. One was a girl with shoulder-length light brown hair that was tied into a ponytail and amber-colored eyes. She was bleeding, her clothes were tattered, and the man was bearing down on her with a twisted smirk. "Get away from her!" a boy shouted. He had much darker hair and green eyes. He tried to get to his feet, but he was badly beaten. While the third sat with his legs pressed to his chest, crying uncontrollably. He had 2 choices: he could act or he could leave them be, so he really didn't have a choice. "Didn't you hear him? Leave her alone!" he shouted, stepping from behind the tree. The older shinobi turned, and when he saw it was nothing more than a child, he just turned away from the child, but when he turned back to the girl, she was gone and the boy was standing there closing his left eye. "It is your unlucky day. You see, I am having a very bad day and I need someone to take it out on, and you look like just the person. Are you ready?" "Don't fuck with me, kid," the older shinobi shouted as he tried to punch Naruto, but he missed, and in that moment Naruto opened his left eye and the man before him froze and he started crying out in pain. The cry scared the Jonin more than anything before this. They watched as a ball of pure chakra formed in his hand and he slammed it into their enemy's face. I see, can't do th, this anymore, one of them said between sobs. Naruto was tired. He didn't realize how little chakra he had at the moment. There was someone else heading this way. He had the chakra to fight if he needed to, but he would rather not if he could avoid it. When the man came into sight, he was wearing the same hitayate as the Jonin. He looked to be in his mid to late 30s. He was about the same height as Kakashi, but he wore a gray flat jacket with a sleeveless shirt. He had reddish-brown hair and copper-colored eyes. "What happened here?" he asked, looking between them all. "This kid, he saved us," the girl said, wincing as she moved towards the dark-haired boy who tried to save her, but her eyes remained on Naruto. "He was amazing, sensei. I have never seen anyone do what he did," the dark-haired boy added as his female teammate helped him up. "Who are you?" their sensei asked. "My name is Seto Kyo and this is Ito Hibiki and that is my brother Seto Nobu," the girl said, pointing to each of them in turn. "And our sensei is Tanaka Takahiro." "Me?" he asked, trying to think of a name. "Yes, you? I am surprised you don't know I am only the great shinobi to ever live," he said, puffing out his chest. "I am sure, but does the Kami no Shinobi have a name?" Takahiro asked, still watching him carefully. "It is, Asura the Great," He replied, Asura. So what village are you from? You don't wear a Hittite. Takahiro replied, I am not from one, I just appeared created from all that is awesome. He replied, you don't have a home? Kyo asked. He shook his head in response, Sensei, we should bring him with us. He is powerful but we can't leave him out here alone, he is just a little kid. Yeah, I am just a little kid, Naruto said looking up at him. Takahiro knew he couldn't leave the kid because if he joined another village he could be trouble in a few years, and he didn't have the heart to kill the kid after he just saved his team. He is not a kid, he is a monster, he killed him. We couldn't even touch him and he killed him. Nobu shouted in horror at the idea of bring the kid with them. I didn't kill him, I unalived him. Asura replied, unalived? Takahiro asked sounding confused. Yep, because you can re-alive someone but you can't unkill someone. Once you kill them you can't take it back, he said as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. None of them knew what to make of logic but they left it alone so they could get medical help. Whatever you say kid, let's go, he said. 2 years later, Tanaka was named the new Tsukikage. He sat in his office looking down at a scroll. Pleaded for help. A small village to the south was having an issue with its two most important clans, the Hisashi and Mori. The village was on the brink of civil war but he didn't have the manpower to wait if it came down to that. Sensei, I will go and put an end to this, Asura said stepping from the shadows. I cannot send you, they will never take you seriously, Takahiro said pinching the bridge of his nose. Have faith in me Sensei, he said. Takahiro took a deep breath. Very well, Kyo and Hibiki aren't going to be happy I sent you alone. They don't have to know. I will be back before they return from their mission, Asura said walking out of the office. It was first light when a man standing nearly 6 feet tall appeared covered by a heavy black traveling cloak, the hood pulled over his head masking his face from sight. He made his way towards the forest on the south end of the village. Members of the Mori clan hid in the trees watching as he walked slowly through the trees. When he stepped into a clearing full of buildings he was greeted by an elderly gentleman with 4 masked shinobi on each side of him. Who are you? The Mori clan leader asked. Who I am doesn't matter. The man's voice had a mechanical sound to it. I think it does, the leader replied. Who I am doesn't matter, but what does matter is why I am here. The man continued unfazed by the fact the 8 masked shinobi had drawn their weapons. Then why are you here? I am here to ensure peace. So there are 2 ways this can happen. You and the Hisashi clan can find common ground and end this feud, or I can. Either way it is coming to an end. An Uchiha, the man said stepping back. In one eye there was the Sharingan and in the other there was an eye like nothing he had seen before, but it had the Tomoe like the Sharingan, but it had a ripple pattern and it was steel gray, and the other was red and black with a strange design. Whispers of Uchiha filled the camp. We will talk with them, but will they meet with us? They will, or I will be forced to act, he said turning his back on the leader of the clan heading to the northern side of the village to speak the leader of the Hisashi clan. The closer he got to their compound the more lavishing the building became. When he arrived he was greeted by a man in his late 30s. Strangers aren't allowed here. I have come to deliver the same message to you that I did the Mori clan, he said calmly. And what message would that be? You will find peace or I will, he said just as calmly. You think you can get away with threatening me? The man hissed. Choose your next words carefully because they might be your last, he said, and when the man saw the Sharingan he just scowled. So who hired an Uchiha? A concerned third party outside of the village, he answered. I will be back at nightfall for the answer. With that he vanished from sight. The Hisashi clan leader gathered 4 of his best. One included his eldest child and his only son, the heir to the Hisashi clan, a genius like none other. Once his team was assembled he sent word to Old Man Mori to have a meeting in neutral ground. By noon the 2 sides were sitting across a table from one another with a very nervous-looking daimyo. I am glad you 2 have decided to meet. Hisashi-san. The Mori clan had started before he was cut off. The next leader will be someone from our clan, Hisashi said. It has been agreed that a leader cannot be from one of our villages. It would give one clan too much power, Mori said. Your power is waning, old man. We are the future of this village. You are nothing more than a relic of a time long past. We must be reasonable. My son Haru will be the next leader. He has no equal in skill or intellect. No one is denying your boy's skill, but for him to be clan head and village leader it is too much power for one man. As leader he will have to make choices that benefit all, not just the Hisashi clan, Mori replied calmly. Those are the terms, take them or leave them, Hisashi said. You are damning us with your demands, Mori replied. I have made my demands clear. It is on you to accept. Unlike you, I don't fear the Uchiha. Then you have sealed our fate, Mori said. Getting to his feet he turned to his clansmen and nodded, and they walked out, leaving a horrified daimyo. All was silent as night fell. A young girl looked up to see a blood-red moon. She didn't know what was going, but she knew something wasn't right. She noticed as a cloaked figure walked through the streets. Her father stepped from the house. You have made the wrong choice, Hisashi-san. Now you have forced my hand. He noticed 3 shinobi trying to ambush him, one to his left, one to his right, and the final from behind. Would spikes shout from his shoulders and back, impaling his would-be attackers before branches spouted out, ripping the shinobi apart. In a blink of an eye he was standing before the clan leader, his hands sticking through his chest. "Daddy!" the little girl cried, charging him. His right eye fixed upon her and she felt a strange jerk, and she was in the middle of a forest somewhere. Tears began to stream down her face. She was scared, alone and lost. "What's wrong?" She turned to see two people shinobi from another village. "I'm lost," she said, wiping her tears. "Where do you live?" the woman asked, kneeling down. "The Hisashi compound in the land of mountains," she answered. "Kyo, we don't have time, we have to report into Tsukikage," he said. "You just go on ahead, Hibiki. I will take her home and catch up later." The man stood as the village burned to the ground. "What did you do with me, sister? Where is Kasumi?" a young shinobi asked, glaring at him as he tried his best to get to his feet. But he was too weak. "This didn't have to happen. If only your father would have been a wiser man. But all he cared for was power. The strong are the ones who must lead. A leader must be strong, but it is more than physical gifts. A good leader must be smart, and they must know how to work with others to reach a common goal. You all fail to see that your desire power for the sake of power is meaningless, and you are willing to kill allies to get it, and that is something that I cannot allow. You know, I went to the Mori clan and the leader offered himself over to me, asking me to spare his clansmen for his failings, so I spared him. Your father wanted to go down fighting along with all of you, and so I will end you all." He held a black orb in his hand and it struck the man before him, ripping through him like paper. "It looks like we were too late." The hooded shinobi turned, looking at Danzo through the corner of his eye. 2 years later, he looked upon the village he once used to call home with a heavy heart. This was not how he wanted to return to Konoha. Before he would meet with the Uchiha clan, there was someone else he wished to speak with. He leapt down from the tree, vanishing before he touched the ground. He appeared outside of a decent-sized home. There were only two chakras present at the moment. One was human, the other was not. He entered the house, his eyes fixed on the woman who was once his mother, but now he was nothing more than a stranger to her. "Who are you?" she asked, grabbing a kitchen knife off of the counter. "I am no one," he answered. His voice sounded inhuman even to his own ears. "What is it you want?" she asked. "You posse's something I want," he replied coolly. "You want the QB?" she said, ready to fight. "I do. But I will allow you to keep him if you can answer a simple question." "And what is that?" "What is his name?" Kushina just stared at him blankly. "Don't worry, you will not die." She tried to move but she couldn't. She had looked into his eyes. He possessed the Sharingan and a second eye of the likes she had never seen before. He placed his hand over her seal and she could feel the QB being pulled from her. She fell to her knees weak and her breathing was sharp and hollow. "I told you that you weren't going to die, and I meant it." He placed his hand on top of her head and she could feel her strength returning. She felt his hand leave her head. She looked up and he was gone. As night fell, he made his way into the Uchiha shrine to the secret passage. He opened it and made his way down a flight of stairs. Everyone in the chamber got up, staring at the new arrive, their Sharingans activated. "This is what has become of the once great Uchiha clan. We are still great and the world will know it soon enough," one of them declared. "By attacking Konoha, no one wins through this course of action. The Uchiha clan will lose, but you will weaken Konoha to the point where another war will break out. But I have come to tell you there is still time to stop this madness," he said, his face completely hidden by his hood. "We cannot sit back and allow this treatment to continue." Fugaku snapped. "How I see it, you have two choices. The first, you work this out with Konoha diplomatically, or the Uchiha clan will become a distant memory by night's end," he said, looking up, and they all recoiled. His eyes shifted towards the table, the sage's tablet. Funny, this wasn't even written by the sage of six paths. "You would turn on your own people?" Another Uchiha called out. "I desire peace and I will bring it to the world one way or another. The only question becomes, will you be there to see that day ushered in?" At that they all fired their fire jutsus at him, but the flames vanished before they reached him. "Bad choice," he said as a massive golden hand appeared, enclosing around all within its reach and crushing them to death. So only Fugaku remained. "It didn't have to be like this, but we must live with the choices we make. Fortunately for you, it would be long. You will have to live with the regret." He turned his back as Fugaku burst into black flames. The hooded figure continued to walk out of the shrine, killing all in his way. The Uchiha compound ablaze in black fire. The only sound that could be heard was gently crackling of the flames, the only sound to be heard. He stood before a girl. She tried to get away from him. There was just one more place he need to go to finish his mission. He need to hurry. They would be back soon. By then he wanted to be long gone. He was hired to kill the Uchiha, but he was going to leave 3 alive. The occupants of the last residence haven't seemed to notice anything. "Welcome back," he heard a woman called. When she entered into the room, her smile vanished. She looked a lot like her children. "It's a shame that she had to die. Who are you?" "Shinigami," he answered coolly. He said as he looked her in the eyes, and her expression dead as he slowly made his way forward and he slit her throat, killing her quickly and painlessly. As he left, he found his way impeded by Itachi. "Itachi, move, I don't want to kill you," He said no with emotion in his voice. But you had no problem kill the rest of the Uchiha clan? Itachi said his Sharingan activated locked on him. You're right, I didn't, and if you don't get out of my way I will kill you, Sasuke and Izumi. He answered. Itachi's eyes widened, but he stepped aside, not wanting to risk his little brother's safety. The masked man vanished into thin air. 4 years later, a blonde awake from his slumber, rolling over looking at his alarm clock. It was nearly noon today. He was going to be assigned to Jinan team. He couldn't remember what time he was to be up at the academy to meet these students that he would most likely fail, so there was really no rush. He got up and dressed, placing a pendant around his neck that had a seal mark carved into it. There was a puff of smoke. Standing where Naruto had just been was a man with brown hair. He still had one blue eye and his Rinnegan. He wrapped the eye before putting on his forehead protector. Meanwhile at the academy, the students were anxiously waiting to be placed in their new teams and meet their sensei. A boy with white hair entered the room after lunch. "Bow before me, fools, I will be the greatest ninja you all will ever meet," he said, laughing. "Not with your grades," a cool voice said behind him. He almost toppled over at the laughter. He turned to see a girl with dark brown hair, one blue and one green eye. "Kasumi-chan, why do you have to be so mean? I might just have to remove you from my harem," he said, pulling himself up again. "Ryu-san, I don't know in what twisted reality you have a harem and with me in it, but it isn't this one, so I'm not too hurt," she said, smiling. His head fell once more as he made his way to his seat, defeated. "Ryu-san, I think she likes you," a girl with jet black hair and eyes so dark that appeared to be black said coolly. "Really?" he asked, his head picking up, smiling. "No," she said plainly. His head fell once more in defeat. "Alright class, I know you are excited, but you still have some time before you are dismissed from my class for the final time, so I need you all to take your seats," their sensei said. She had long light brown hair and amber eyes. She was in her early 20s. She started listing off teams. There were mixed reactions to the teams. Finally she called out, "Team 7 will be Hisashi Kasumi, Hayate Ryu, and Umiami, and your sensei is..." His eyes widened, then she looked up with nervous smile. "Your sensei's name isn't on here, but I will make sure they get you one." They did not like the way she was looking. They knew this wasn't going to end well for them. "It looks like that they already knew that you were going to fail, so they aren't even bothering to give you guys a sensei," laughed one of their classmates. "I am not going to fail. I am going to be the greatest ninja ever. You guys are going to beg me to be the next Sakikage." Ryu stood up and declared to the class. Kyo-sensei had a worried look on her face that seemed to go unnoticed by most of the class, but Emi noticed it. "Sensei, what's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing, nothing at all. Let me go see if I can find out who your sensei is," she said, walking out hurriedly. The Jounin instructors started appearing. Soon they were the last ones left. An hour passed, then 2, 3, at this point they were all fed up with waiting, and young man, he looked to be in his 20s, walked through the door. They had seen him before. He was usually around Kyo-sensei. They had learned that they had been on the same Jinan team. "You three go to the roof to meet your sensei, and good luck," he said, turning. Then he stopped and said in a whisper that they all heard, "You will need it." Their hearts stopped in their chest as they made their way to the roof. When they got there, they did not see anyone at first. Finally Kasumi pointed out a boy about their age laying down looking up at the sky. "Hey kid, shouldn't you be somewhere like class or something? We are waiting for our sensei and we wouldn't want them thinking you're in our group," Ryu shouted at the boy. "Really?" the boy said in a bored tone. He looked over at the students. "My first impression of you all, I hate you." Sweat drops fell on the back of their heads. "Alright, let's start with introductions, like tell me your name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams," he said in the same bored tone. "Why don't you go first, you little bastard?" Ryu said, pissed at the boy's nonchalant personality. "Okay, my name. Well, you all can just call me sensei. As for my likes, you don't need to know. My dislikes, you all. My hobbies, I don't want to tell you, and my dream," he said, stopping, thinking, "I had a funny one last night." "You didn't tell us anything but that you don't like us and that you think you are our sensei," Ryu shouted. "You can go next," he said, not even bothering to look over at them. "My name is Hayate Ryu. I love beautiful girls. I dislike people who don't know how to treat a woman, and you," he added, glaring at him, but Naruto didn't really care. "My hobbies is collecting the hearts of women. My dream is to be the greatest ninja ever and have the world's greatest harem. So I have a pervert on my team," Naruto thought to himself. "I will go next. My name is Hisashi Kasumi. I like cute things and reading. I dislike perverts. My hobbies are singing, training and cooking. My dream is to be the best I can be. She sounds like she has some promise," he thought to himself. "My name is Umiami. I like too many things. I don't really dislike anything. And hobbies, I'm not really sure. I guess I will try anything at least once. My dream is to be a well-rounded person. What a strange group. I'm going to have fun with them," An evil smirk appeared on his face that they did not seem to notice, and for the first time he sat up looking over at the students. "Okay, tomorrow we are going to have a test to see if you can continue to be ninja," he said. They all looked shocked. "But we took a test so that we could become Jonin," Kasumi said, sounding nervous. "That was just to weed out the weak. This test is something that I am putting you through to see if you can really cut it as ninja. So, meet me at Training Ground 10 tomorrow morning at 5:10 a.m. and one more thing, make sure you don't eat anything or you will be sick. Bye now," he said, vanishing, leaving his students horrified. The next morning they were all there by 5, and 5:10 came and went with no sign of their sensei. It was almost 11 when he finally showed up, in a cloud of smoke. "Good morning. You are almost 6 hours late," they all shouted at him. "I told you all 10:05, he said. "No, you said 10 after 5:05, Kasumi said, glaring at him. "Did I? Why would I do that? I don't want to get up that early," he said, looking confused. "Never mind," Kasumi said, putting her face in her hand. "Well, since we are all here, I will explain the rules." He pulled out 2 silver bells. "In order to pass you need to get one, and if you don't you will be tied to a tree while the rest of us eat. And you will also be sent back to the academy if you fail to get a bell." "But you only have 2 bells," Emmy pointed out. "This is true, so that means at least one of you will fail and tied to a tree watching the rest of eat. And if you want any chance of getting a bell from me you have to come at me as if you are going to kill me, otherwise you will have no chance of passing. You have an hour and a half to get a bell from me, so, ready, set, go." They vanished. He looked around, finding all 3 of them in a matter of moments. He reached in his pouch, pulling out a book, the title read, "A Tale of the Legendary Sucker," laughing as he read the book. He ducked as a kick went over his head and in one fluid motion he made a tiger seal. "Kasumi, look out," Ryu shouted, but it was too late. "1,000 years of pain," Naruto shouted as he poked her in the ass, sent her flying, and then he opened his book like nothing had happened. "What the hell was that?" Kasumi shouted, looking pissed as she got to her feet. "A jutsu," he said, not looking up from his book. "Well, let's see you do that to me," Ryu shouted as he attacked. "No, I have a different jutsu for you." He made some unknown hand sign to, then he vanished. "Water torture jutsu," he said as he put his finger in his mouth, then into Ryu's ear, causing him to jump and curse loudly. "2 down, 1 to go," he said before vanishing and reappearing before Emmy. He made a ram hand sign. "Hell's hand jutsu," he said as he began to tickle Emmy. She was unable to fight back. She began to laugh so hard that it sounded as if she was crying. When the other 2 came into sight he waved to them before vanishing. "Our sensei is an idiot and a pervert," Ryu said, thinking that they were alone. "That may be the case, but we can't beat him alone. We will have to work together if any of us are going to pass," Kasumi said. "Well, who would fail if we do get the bells? Because there are only 2 bells and 3 of us," Emmy reminded the group. "Well, it won't matter if we can't get any of the bells," Kasumi said softly. "Well, I will let you 2 pass if we get the bells," Ryu said, smiling weakly. They all stood there for a moment, working on a plan in order to get the bells. When they found their sensei, he was sitting under a tree reading his book. "So have you babies come to tell me that you give up?" "No, we have come to take the bells from you," Ryu shouted. "All 3 of you?" he asked, sounding amused. "Yes," they said in unison. "You know that one of you is going to fail regardless?" "Yes," they repeated. "Well then, that means," he said, getting up. They all took a step back, looking a little nervous as he closed his book. He had a serious look on his face. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "You all pass," he said, quickly smiling. "Wait, what?" Ryu said as they all looked dumbfounded. "I wanted to see if you 3 could work together when it was in your best interest to work alone. Thou none of you would have passed even if 2 of you would have gotten the bells on your own, which you wouldn't have," he explained. "So why not just have 3 bells?" Kasumi asked. "It would have defeated the point of the test." He didn't want it obvious we needed to work together, but that we needed to turn on each other in order to pass, Emmy said thoughtfully. "Very good, that was the whole point to this test," Naruto said, smiling. "Sensei," Kasumi said softly. "What?" "You know," she started, pausing for a moment, "you're a bastard." His head fell slightly. "Well, that's all. I will see you guys here tomorrow at 10 and the real training will begin," he said before vanishing. Then they noticed the clock that he had left behind. They were nearly 2 hours past the deadline. Had he known that they were planning to work together, or did he forget about the time? Kasumi thought as she noticed it. She pushed it out of her mind as they made their way back to the village. They bumped into Kyo-sensei as they went to get some food. It seemed that while their bastard sensei was waiting for them, he ate all of the lunches. Which was better than failing, so they weren't too mad about it. "Kyo-sensei, what do you know about our sensei?" Kasumi asked, eyeing her suspiciously. "He was my teammate," she said, smiling nervously. "How, he is like our age?" Ryu interjected. "True, but he became a Jonin by 4, a Chunin by 5 and a Jounin by 6, she said, still smiling nervously. "Anything else you would like to tell us?" Kasumi asked with a newfound respect for her sensei. Yeah, he is always late. We already know this, Ryu said, glaring at their former sensei. And one last thing, she said seriously. What is it? They asked as they sat down to eat. Never say his name 3 times, you will be cursed, she said, looking scary. We don't even know his name, Ryu said, crossing his arms, looking pissed. Well, it's for the best, she said, nodding. So can you tell us what it is? Emi asked. I could, but I'm not. After 10 minutes of bombarding her with pleas, she finally gave in. Fine, his name is, she said, looking around, leaning, and they did the same. Asura. If that was my name, I wouldn't want people to know it either, Ryu cried out, laughing. Asura. Asura. Don't do it, I'm telling you, don't do it, Kyo-sensei said quickly, but it was too late. Asura. The sky went dark in the middle of the day, and there he was looking at Ryu. No, he was looking at him, but, through him, into his soul. Chills went up his spine. But no one else seemed to notice their sensei. Ryu began to sweat as he looking into the only visible eye on his sensei's face. After he managed to break eye contact, everyone looked at him asking if he was alright. Yeah, I'm fine, but he did not stay much longer, saying that he had things to do at home. Soon they all went their own way. Over the next few months they were worked harder than they had even been. Training every day and missions every other day. After another babysitting mission, Ryu shouted out in frustration, I am tired of all these damn D-ranked missions. I will talk to the Tsukikage and see what he can do about it, Asura said, also getting tired of these D-ranked missions. He was used to going on only A-ranked missions or higher, and these missions weren't even worth his time. I love you, bastard sensei, Kasumi said happily. He did not really like his new nickname that she had given him. He guessed she still hadn't forgiven him for poking her in the ass during his test, but both Kakashi-sensei and Uro-senin would have been proud of him for that little jutsu, but he did say anything before vanishing. The next day they appeared in the Tsukikage. They had learned from Kyo-sensei this man had once been her sensei, and so that meant he also trained their current sensei. I have granted your request for a B-ranked mission. I have granted your request for a B-ranked mission. The Genin looked surprised that they had skipped C-ranked missions straight to B-ranked. Yes, we are total badasses, Ryu shouted in glee. Are you sure that we are ready for a B-ranked mission? Kasumi asked, sounding a little nervous. I'm sure sensei wouldn't have requested a B-ranked mission if he didn't think we couldn't handle it, Emi said, sounding bored. No, he told me you were completely incompetent and you could barely handle D-ranked missions. They almost fell over at this. But I told him it wasn't true, and to prove it I have given you a B-ranked mission. It is more of a C-ranked mission, but in the area it is in makes dangerous enough to become a B-ranked mission. Bastard sensei, they muttered under their breath. You rang? Their sensei said, standing behind them. They all froze in fear, not thinking that he would have heard them. Well, I think it is time to meet your mission, the Tsukikage said, wondering if it was really a good idea to give them a B-ranked mission. Come in, he called. A man wearing a navy blue suit stepped into the room, clean cut. He held his nose up like he could smell something foul in the room. So where is my escort? Right in front of you, the Tsukikage said as the man's eye fell upon the ninja before him. Have any of them even hit puberty yet? The man asked. Don't worry, I trained one of them personally and he has been a jounin for 6 years now. And which one would that be? The Tsukikage pointed to the Naruto. So I get the one with one eye. That reassuring. How did he lose his eye? The Kage looked horrified at the false smile that his former student was now giving the client. Do you want to know what's under these bandages? He said in a falsely sweet voice, while the Tsukikage was shaking his head quickly. No, he said hesitantly. Very well, what is the mission? You are to take me to the land of waves. They are building a bridge to help increase trade and I want to be the first to tap into their resource, the man said. Say no more. I was hoping to pay a visit there soon. Kills 2 birds with 1 stone, so we leave tomorrow at 10. No, better make it 10:30. I need a well-balanced breakfast, Naruto said, scratching his chin. Isn't that for me to decide? His voice fading under the look he received from the one-eyed jounin. 10:30, he said quickly. Naruto nodded. By the way, my name is Asura, and yours? Kaido, he said, looking terrified of the little ninja. Very well, good day to you all, Naruto said, vanishing into thin air. Never say his name, Ryu warned after his sensei had left the room. You'll be cursed if you say it 3 times. I know I did it, he said, his eyes wide like a madman. The 3 Genin left the office not knowing what to expect of their first mission outside of the village. They decided since they had nothing else to do they would go to lunch, something that they did not do before they were put on the same team. Over the last few months they had become inseparable. Their sensei stressed teamwork. He was always saying stuff like your team is your family and you need to have complete trust in them. They all wondered about their sensei. He seemed wise beyond his years, but they had never seen what made him a jounin level ninja. Chunin maybe, but they were careful never to say anything like that in front of him because he was a madman. His training regiments were hell, and, worse, when they pissed him off. The next day they were surprised to see their sensei on time. He was never on time unless you counted to meals. But he thought he was always on time, saying something like, "I am on time. I arrived right when I wanted to." Even though he was always late, he always knew if they were late or not, and the day they had training he made them wish they were dead. Sensei was talking to Kaido. "You're late," Naruto called. "It's 10:30, we are no time," Ryu shouted. "To be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late, and to be late is unacceptable," Naruto answered. "You're one to talk, bastard sensei," Kasumi said, a sweat drop on the back of her head. "Bastard sensei?" Kaido repeated, confusion evident on his face. "Yeah, for some reason they think I'm a bastard. I don't get how they could think that," Naruto said, trying to sound hurt and innocent at the same time. But Naruto looked serious as he turned to his group. "We need to finish this mission as quickly as possible." "Why is it dangerous?" Kasumi asked, not able to mask the fear in her voice. Even Emi, who didn't really show emotions, looked scared as he nodded. "If I remember correctly, the Land of Waves," he said, pausing as everyone leaned in, even Kaido. He had a look of seriousness that they had never seen on his face before. "The Land of Waves doesn't have ramen." They all fell over at the statement. "Bastard sensei, is that all you think of?" Kasumi shouted. "I don't know, I never thought about it," he said, causing them to fall over again. He rubbed the back of his head as they got back to their feet. They started to the Land of Waves. While none of them were looking, Naruto made a quick set of hand signs before placing his hand on the ground, and a little fox appeared. Naruto nodded at the little fox and it ran off. "I didn't know there were any foxes around here," Emi said as she caught sight of the little fox running off. "You never know what you will find if you are paying attention," Naruto said, smiling. Emi watched him as they walked. "What are you doing?" he finally asked after a while. "You said if we pay attention we will find something," she said, still watching him. "Okay," he said, not sure where she was going with this. "We don't know much about you, so if I watch you I will find something," she answered plainly. "I guess," he said, rubbing his chin in thought. "So what have you found so far?" "That you're an idiot," she said just as plainly. "I get that a lot," he said, smiling. This did not comfort Kaido, who was paying them to keep him safe. After what seemed like forever, Naruto noticed the little fox, who nodded then before running off once more. He knew that he had about a month before Gato would show that the bridge. Hopefully he would be able to find him before then, but if it came to it he always had that option open to him. It was not finding him that would be the challenge, it would be doing it and not being noticed by his student or the Konoha shinobi who were in the area. Sending clones to look for him would make it easy and he would have him found in a day tops, but with Kakashi around that wouldn't be the smartest thing to do. He would have to move carefully, and if he did this right he might be able to save Haku. "Sensei, are you alright?" Kasumi asked, looking worried. "I'm fine," he said, smiling before looking in the direction of the battle. "I wonder how it will turn out this time?" he said to himself in a whisper. "What are you talking about, sensei?" Ryu asked, also looking worried. "Nothing, nothing at all." When they finally made it the Land of Waves, Ryu had been getting on his nerves with his complaining about wanting a rest. They found an inn to stay at while they finished their mission, or rather missions in his case. He had been ordered by the Tsukikage to eliminate Gato and he didn't care how it was done, but he wanted it done. The sun had set, his team was asleep. He slipped outside, kneeled down as the little fox came into sight. "What happened?" he asked the little fox. "The Four-Leaf Village ninja are fine, they defeated the missing nin, but I don't think he is dead. A hunter nin took his body," the little fox answered. "Very good. How long do you think we have?" "I would say about a month considering his injuries." "Thank you," he said as the little fox vanished. He smiled as he heard footsteps walking up to him. "How can I help you, Kaido?" "I was wondering how you are a sensei and you look no older than the ones you are teaching," Kaido said. "We might appear the same age, but we are far from equals when it comes to skills. I have my 6th year in Anbu already, so if you have any worries don't, you are safe as long as you stay on my good side," Naruto said, smiling. "I understand. Well, good night," the man said, turning off, walking back into the inn. But he remained sitting there looking off into the distance until the sun had started to peek over the horizon. He vanished from his spot, appearing in his room. He had sent 3 foxes off, one to watch the Konoha shinobi, one to watch Haku and Zabuza, and one to search the Land of Waves. "I hope you all slept well because today we are going to have fun," he said, walking from his room with a twisted smile and a bounce in his step. His students did not like it. The way he was looking at them gave them the creeps, and they never liked his idea of fun because it was only ever fun for him. Kaido looked confused at why they would be so scared of having fun. "I thought everyone liked having fun?" Kaido asked. "Yeah, but he is a sick and twist bastard," Kasumi said, stepping back, and his grin widened. "He is the master of torture," Ryu shouted in fear. The Kaido remember what Asura had said to him last night. "I have my 6 years in Anbu already." He didn't know much about ninja rank, but he was sure that if had 6 years in anything at his age meant he was a very capable. "Let's go," he said, leading them outside. "We will start with some light spearing, and since I want to have some fun it will be you 3 against me. Last one standing gets a great prize. You are out if you die, capture, or if you would die in a real battle." So ready, go. They disappeared. They are getting much better at hiding, he thought to himself, smiling. Then he turned to Kaido, who was watching with a shocked expression, as he pulled out a book and began to read. Are you sure you should be reading at a time like this? What do you think, I should take a nap? A sweat drop appeared on the back of his head. He heard an ambush, earth release, highlight mole jutsu. He vanished into the earth. Where did he go? Ryu cried. Soon his teammates were standing next to him. Earth release, whack-a-mole jutsu. He popped up behind them, whacking them on their heads with a paper fan, still reading his book. I win. Do you guys want to try again? This time they did not wait for he to say start. They attacked him. He dodged all of their attacks, smiling. So is that how we are playing? He asked, an icy tone to his voice that they had never heard before. Shit, Ryu said, his eyes wide in horror as their sensei walked towards them, vanishing and reappearing behind him. Kasumi ran to Ryu's aid, saving him from elimination. Emi attacked while he was busy dodging Kasumi's attack, but he blocked her attack. He took his eyes off of his team, noticing that they were being watched. He jumped out of the group. He made a quick set of hand signs, placing his hand to the ground. There were 3 streaks that rushed past the Jinan into the trees. What the hell was that, sensei? Ryu asked, horrified. Are they going to kill us? No, they were meant to make you drop your guard, he said, attacking his students once more. At the end of the hour, his students sat there panting. Now I think chakra control, by climbing trees, he said, rubbing his chin. That sounds easy, Kasumi said, sounding relieved. What's the catch? Emi asked. A smile appeared on his face once again. I am glad you ask. You cannot use your hands. Seeing their puzzled looks, he walked over to the nearest tree and continued to walk straight. They looked upon their sensei in amazement. All right, have at it, he said, laying you down, looking up at the sky, closing his eyes. How in the hell are we supposed to do something like that? Ryu shouted at the sleeping Jounin. Figure it out, Asura answered, rolling over on his side. That was his normal response to their questions, and they hated it when he did that. You never teach us anything. You tell us to learn how to do something, then you don't tell us how to do it, Kasumi shouted, throwing a little rock at him. And once it hit him, she along with her team knew they were going to get it now. You're right. What kind of sensei am I having you learn to climb trees on your own? He said, sitting up with an evil glint in his eye. That would send the professional badass running home to their mommy. But trees are boring. I hope you are up for a swim. Sure, why not? Ryu answered. Sounds more fun than climbing trees. But soon he was sure at the laugh that met their ears, a laugh of a deranged man. I am going to teach you to walk on water. The first one to reach me will get the rest of the day off, but every time you fall in, well, let's just say you don't want to know, he said, continuing to laugh. The rest of the day was complete hell for the Jinan. They had to drag themselves back into their rooms silently. They wanted to complain about their sensei, but they were too tired to even do that. You are rather ruthless, aren't you? Kaido said as a statement, not a question. It's better for them to figure things out on their own. It teaches them the skill and problem solving, Naruto replied as he remained outside as the sun began to set. I'm a lot nicer to them than the ones who taught me were, added with a smile. What do you mean? When I learned the summoning jutsu, my sensei asked me if there was anything I wanted to eat. Then he treated me to that meal, or rather took me, then bailed when the bill arrived. Then he asked me was there someone I wanted to say goodbye to, he said, smiling, looking back fondly on those days. That doesn't sound too bad. Then he threw me off a cliff. The rock were too slick to hold on to even with chakra, and the only way for me to live was to use the summoning jutsu, he said, still smiling, while Kaido looked horrified at the thought of throwing a child over a cliff. Another one of my jutsu I had to learn on my own, being left to my own devices for days on end, but it made me stronger. Figuring out things on my own allowed me to create my own jutsu, and master jutsu that no one else knew. The Tsukikage did that to you? No, it was him. It was my godfather. He was the strongest ninja I had ever known, but he was killed some time ago. Well, good night, he said, walking to his room. He got in bed, leaving the pendant on in case someone entered his room while he was asleep or something happened and he didn't have the time to put it on. Naruto, why didn't you bring him back? You said that you would die with him, but here you are standing before me. You lied to me. That's all you are, Naruto. A liar, a pink-haired shinobi shouted at him. I'm sorry, Sakura, I tried, he said, tears running down his cheeks as he reached out for her as Ino appeared behind her. You are nothing more than a monster. You don't deserve to live. You should just drop dead, she said, her voice full of venom. All his old friends appeared, repeating one word over and over again, monster. He was a little boy once again as he stood alone. The faceless people ignored his very existence. Pain filled his heart. He was crying, but no one seemed to notice, or they didn't care. No one even gave him a second glance until a boy with black hair stepped forward, extending his hand. Naruto reached to take it, but the boy's hand went past his straight to his throat, lifting him straight in the air as his free hand built up chakra. His hand plunged straight through his chest. You couldn't save any of them. You killed your best friend for what? You still failed to save them, and now their blood is on your hands, my son, Kaguya said, appearing before him. Stop it. Just shut up, he shouted at the top of his lungs, But the cries of monster just got louder. Naruto sat up in a cold sweat. The sun had already risen. There was a knock on the door. "Sensei," a panicked voice called from the other side of the door. He got to his feet, walked to the door, putting on a smile that didn't reach his eyes, but it was rare for anyone to notice. No one ever looked past the smile. Who care about a demon? "Sensei, are you alright? I thought I heard something from your room," Kasumi said, looking concerned. "I'm fine, but no training today," he said, walking back into his room, closing the door. Kasumi went outside where the other Junon were waiting. "No training today," Kasumi said, answering the unasked question. "I think there is something wrong with Sensei." "When did you figure that out? Was it the hell he put us through, or could it be his childish attitude?" Ryu said, laughing. "No, I'm serious. I went by his room, and he was shouting about something. Then when he opened the door he looked different, almost broken," her voice trailing off. "Maybe he was thinking about something that happened to him. What do we really know about him? What troubles could he have? He is just a poor little genius," Ryu said, shrugging. "You think that's so?" Kaido said, walking out of the inn, shaking his head. "I asked him why he is so hard on you guys. Well, let's just say that you guys have it nothing compared to how he did from the little he told me. You three should go out and see how things are here before complaining about how you have it." "What do you know about me? I saw my family killed right before my eyes," Kasumi snapped. It was the first time any of them had ever heard her truly upset. "You're shinobi, how many families will you break up? How many families do you think your sensei has seen broken either by his hand or someone else's?" He left without another word. They all stood in silence. What had he meant by "well, let's just say that you guys have it nothing compared to how he did"? What did he know about their sensei? She felt bad. She never really tried to get to know him. After their first test he gave them, she had forgot that he was their age and a jounin. What must he had seen at such a young age? More than them. More than her. Why had he become so strong? There must have been some reason. Next chance she got, she was going to talk to him and really try to get to know him as a person. She made her way to the city. It was empty. The grocery stores had no food. No one was in the streets. She saw a pink-haired girl in one of the stores looking a small selection that was marked at ridiculous prices. She noticed that she was a shinobi from another village. Did this have anything to do with why Sensei was acting strange since yesterday morning? She bumped into someone not paying attention to where she was going. "Sorry," she said hurriedly as she looked up to see a blonde with blue eyes that reminded her of her sensei's. He smiled friendly down at her, reaching down to take her hand. "It's okay, my name is Naruto," he said, smiling at her. "I am Kasumi. Are you a ninja?" she asked, seeing his forehead protector that had a leaf on it. "Yes, I am going to be the greatest shinobi to come out of the Hidden Leaf Village, even greater than my father," he said proudly. "Naruto, I doubt that you will become stronger than your father. I don't think that is possible," a dark-haired boy with black eyes said, standing behind him. "So who is your father?" "He is the 4th Hokage," he said, just as proud. "You must be strong then, having the Hokage as your father and all he can teach you," she said, trying to keep the jealousy out of her voice. "How about you?" she asked the dark-haired boy. "I just want to kill the man that killed my clan," he said coldly. "Your clan?" "I am one of last Uchiha," he answered. "Wow, I heard you guys are supposed to be really strong, but I also heard you guys were wiped out by one man." He glared at her. "I didn't mean anything by it," she said quickly, "but I heard of another clan that was wiped out by one man. There is a rumor going around that he was an Uchiha and it could be the same man," she added quickly. "You're a strange girl," the Uchiha said with a slight smile. She beamed up at the two men. It caused them both to blush slightly. "Would you like to accompany us to lunch?" "If you guys know a good place, I don't have a problem joining you," she said, smiling again. Naruto was a little worried about his students, though he would never tell them that because heaven forbid they thought he liked them in the less. He had a clone stay with the businessman that they were supposed to be guarding and he went off. It did not take long for him to find Emi and Ryu. They were fishing, or rather Ryu was fishing and Emi was just staring at him. That had become a habit of hers since he had told her if she looked she could find things she didn't know was there, and she took him a little too literally. He was surprised to find Kasumi with the Hidden Leaf Ninja. He watched her from a distance for a while. He noticed a familiar presence behind him. "Sharingan no Kakashi," he said without looking back. "I must say I am honored that you would come over here to say hello. You seem to know who I am, but I can say the same about me," Kakashi said in his usual lazy tone. "I am hurt that you have forgotten me already. 8 years ago, ring any bells?" Naruto said, finally turning around. Kakashi's one visible eye widened. "So you do remember me? I feel so honored." "What are you doing here?" "I am here to check on my student." "Your student?" Kakashi said, watching him from the corner of his exposed eye. "Yes, that girl. She is one of my students." "But you're so young." "I have been a jounin for about 6 years now," he said in a mocked hurt tone. "I think the year I took the Chunin exam was the last year my village participated. I don't think we have been on the greatest of terms with you all, but I think this year might be different," Asura said, smiling. One more thing, if they don't know she is a ninja, don't say anything. She needs a little fun before the hell I'm going to put them through. Kasumi stopped what she was doing, feeling a chill run up her spine. Kasumi, are you alright? Naruto asked. Yes, I just have a feeling that something bad is going to happen, she said, looking around. I will be back to pick her up in a few hours. Let her know that the bastard is coming, he said, vanishing, leaving Kakashi looking confused, but he shrugged it off and started reading his book, walking back to the house to deliver the news that did not seem to go down that well with her. It felt like they had been here for more than a month with all the training they had been out through, but it had just been a month. A thick fog started to build on the bridge, and Kasumi had remembering seeing the hidden leaf shinobi heading towards the bridge. She couldn't let them face whatever it was alone. She didn't wait for anyone, she just ran off, not thinking. Kakashi spotted her first and felt dread. He did not sense her sensei, and if something happened to her it would not end well for any of them on the bridge if the young shinobi decided. He saw her eyes fix on the ice dome where Naruto and Sasuke were fighting. She made a few quick hand signs, water release, water clone jutsu, as a water clones blocked the senbon coming at them. Naruto and Sasuke looked surprised at their savior. She made a few more hand signs, water release, water dome jutsu, as a dome made of water encased the two young males. All she had to do now was find a way to get them out in one piece. Watch out. She heard someone call, but it was too late. She was unable to make a single hand sign. A large water dragon rose from the sea, smashing against the bridge right into Zabuza. She looked around, but it was Kakashi, and the boys looked as stunned as she was. Even the young shinobi with no skill as sensory shinobi felt it coming. It was like nothing they had ever felt before. The closest thing to it Kasumi could think of was like standing in the middle of an ocean with no end of it in sight. The air around them felt heavy, it was hard to breathe, and from the mist a figure loomed, drawing ever closer. Fear filled them like they had never known. It was like their own death was bearing down on them and there was no escaping it. Its inevitability felt so absolute. The figure came to a stop as the mist began to melt back, revealing a tall man dressed in a white cloak with flames at the bottom, a hood pulled over his head covering his face and hair. Slowly he raised his head, revealing a kitsune mask. She had seen that mask before. This was the same man that killed her clan, but why save her now? Zabuza, the demon of the mist, he said in a calm voice, a demon to those who have never seen a true demon. It looks like our fight will have to be put on hold for a while or we all will die here today, Zabuza said, his eyes fixed on the masked man before them. His posture was relaxed, as if he didn't have a care in the world. Do you know who this man is? Kakashi asked. Not personally, most nations don't put him in a bingo book, and the few that do, have a flee on sight order. Sharingan no Shinigami, Zabuza said. Kasumi wanted to attack him to get him for the pain that he had caused her for taking her family, but she was scared. She didn't want to die, and with his power there would be no doubt that death would be the outcome of the fight. If you retreat now then you don't have to die, none of you do, he said just as calmly. She saw Sasuke make a move and he raised a single finger and they all fell to their knees. The pressure the man exuded was unnatural. No man could be this powerful. Calm yourself, young Uchiha. He lowered his finger, allowing them to get to his feet. There is no need for you to die this day. You slaughtered my clan. Do you think I am just going to let you get away with it? Sasuke shouted his incomplete Sharingan. Foolish boy, he said, and Sasuke fell back in fear. Appearing behind the man was a monstrous fox, its eyes glowing red, its 9 tails swaying ominously. This was what a true demon looked like. Sasuke, what's wrong? Naruto asked, but he was unable to speak. He felt crushed under the overwhelming power before him. Without thinking, Kasumi attacked. All she could think of was him, standing over her father. He dodged her attack with ease, but before she could launch another attack she was blasted back with pure chakra raw power. She couldn't believe it, how far beneath him she was. Kakashi was relieved that her sensei had saved her, catching her before she hit the water below. But there was still the problem at hand. This man was too powerful. There was nothing they could do if he wanted them dead. The masked man reached into his robes and tossed something at Zabuza's feet, and he picked up, releasing the seal upon it, and out fell a head. It was the head of Gato. It seems we are no longer enemies since my employer is dead, he said, walking away. Haku, let's go. Meanwhile, Asura was carrying Kasumi back to the inn. She had passed out from the shock. When he got back to the inn there were 3 little fox waiting for him. All 3 fox were of different sizes and color, but the biggest difference was the more tails they had, the bigger they were. The one with 3 tails spoke first. That Tsukikage wants to know how much longer you think this mission will take. The fox's voice was a lot deeper than one would have thought possible for such a little fox. His fur was a brownish organ color. His green eyes stood out well against the brown fur. Give us about a week then travel time, Asura responded. And he needs your answer, the 3-tailed fox said, getting up, stretching. He will have my answer upon my arrival, he said before the fox ran off. He turned to the other fox. It seems as if the copycat ninja has been trying to find out about you, but he has been quiet about it, the 2-tailed fox said in a soft voice. This was the only female in the group that he had summoned. She had white fur and bright blue eyes. "Do you know what he has found out?" "From what I heard, nothing. It seems that only one two-man can open your file, you and that Tsukikage," she said. Asura just smiled and she vanished. "The others are fine," the smallest said in a timid voice. "Thanks Seichiro, you did a great job." His ears perked up at the compliment. "I will call you again." The little fox vanished. A week later, after they had finished the mission, they were nearing home. "Home sweet home," Ryu shouted as he ran through the gates. "Get some rest, we have a long day tomorrow. Be at the training grounds at 9, he said, about to vanish. "Are you sure that you want us there at 9? Emi asked calmly. "I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it," he said, vanishing. "He's going to be late," Ryu said, a sweet drop on the back of his head. He turned to his brunette teammate. "Kasumi, are you alright? You haven't said much since Sensei carried you back to the inn unconscious." "I'm fine," she said, smiling. "Well, I will see you two tomorrow," she said, running off. There was a knock on the Tsukikage's door. "Come in," he called as Asura came into sight. "Just the man I wanted to see." "So do you have your answer?" "I nominate my students for the upcoming Chunin exam." "I nominate my students for the upcoming Chunin exam," he said, a smile appearing on his face. "But I have one more test for them before I allow them to take part. I want to see how well they use the skills they have obtained when they believe all they have is each other." "You know that is not necessary," the Tsukikage said, raising his eyebrows. "I know, but I must see my handiwork firsthand," he said with a sadistic smile. Elsewhere, all three of his students stood up, looking around. They felt that something bad was going to happen in the near future. It was 9 in the morning, and when the three of them arrived, they were all shocked to see their sensei already waiting for them. The only time he was on time was for meals in their last mission when they left the village. "Sensei, you're on time," Ryu said in shock. "We have another mission today," he said cheerfully. "Sensei, you're on time," Ryu repeated. "I'm always on time, I arrive on my time," he said, smiling. "But you're the one who appoints the times we met," Kasumi pointed out. "That's neither here nor there," he said, brushing her comment aside. "We need to recover a scroll that has been stolen. We believe he is still in the forest waiting for things to die down before he tries to make his escape. This is another B-ranked mission, but this one is much more dangerous than the last one. But don't worry, I am here, and if you guys die I don't get paid, so let's go." "Is that the only reason you make sure we don't get hurt?" Kasumi asked, not looking at him. He started rubbing his chin, lost in thought, before answering. "Yeah, that sounds right," he said, smiling. His team almost fell over. As they made their way through the forest, they felt confident because of their recent success on their last B-ranked mission. Ryu was just walking through the forest carefree. What happened next happened too fast for any of them to process. Asura jumped in front of Ryu as he tripped a wire. They saw their sensei being filled with kunai. He hit the ground, looking up at his team, looking as if someone had been using him as target practice. "Finish the mission, I'm counting on you." "We need to get help for sensei," Kasumi said in a panic. "No," Ryu said, "we are ninja and as such we need to finish the mission. That is what sensei wanted." "But Kasumi, how far can your water clones travel?" "I'm not sure." "Why?" "If you can send a message back to the village telling them that sensei has been injured and we can finish this mission," Ryu answered. "Water release, water clone jutsu," she said as a clone ran off in the direction of the village too. After a few minutes they continued on their way. The confidence that they had felt at the beginning of the mission was now gone. "I am insulted that they would send 3 little brats after me," a voice called from the branch of a tree above them. It was a man with black hair that framed his thin face. He wore a Jounin vest, a gray shirt under it with black pants and ninja sandals. He jumped down, throwing kunai that hit the 3 students before he touched the ground. The 3 burst into water. "Water clones," he said, looking around, just able to dodge the first attack launched by Ryu. The Rouge ninja pulled out a kunai, but a water wall appeared before he could counter. He jumped away from the wall. "Shit," he shouted as a fireball came towards him, he barely able to dodge it. A smile appeared on his face. "I must say that you 3 are better than I thought, but it's time to see how good you really are," he said, vanishing in whirling leaves. They saw their sensei walking towards them, panting, blood-soaked. "What are you doing here, sensei? You should have been waiting for the medical unit we sent for," Kasumi said. "I couldn't let you guys do this one on your own," he said, stumbling towards them. "Release," Emi whispered. Their sensei vanished. "What happened?" Kasumi asked, looking around. "Where did sensei go?" "It was genjutsu. Sensei taught me how to use some genjutsu and release it," she said calmly. A kunai landed between them. It had a paper bomb attached to it. "Water release, water dome jutsu." A dome covered the bomb just before it exploded. They still felt some of the force, but it was enough to hurt them. "That was good thinking, Kasumi," Ryu said, smiling. "Thanks, but we are not in the clear yet," she said, looking around for their enemy. "I see you guys are well adapted with ninjutsu and genjutsu. Let's see your taijutsu," he said, jumping before them. "You two stay back, wait until you see an opening," Ryu whispered to his teammates. They nodded, but they still looked worried. Ryu ran at the man attacking with everything he had. He knew from the beginning he was not as skilled as the man he was fighting. But he was sure he could make the man slip up and then they would snatch this victory from him. And the man did make a mistake. Kasumi and Emi made their move. Kasumi snatched the scroll from him while a fireball hit the man. When the smoke cleared, the man was gone. They heard clapping from above them. The man jumped down, still clapping. They readied themselves to fight once more even though they were all drained. "Release," the man said, and standing before them was their sensei. He was completely fine and he was smiling. "I guess you three aren't completely incompetent, but you are still incompetent nonetheless." What was this all about, we thought, but how? Ryu asked, looking confused. The Tsukikage appeared next to their sensei. "We wanted to make sure that you all were ready to stand on your own. We also wanted to see if you could work together on a mission and if you could use what you have learned, thinking you had no safety net if you failed. I think they are ready for the Chunin exam," he said, smiling at them. "We are going to be Chunin?" Kasumi asked, looking surprised. "That is if you good-for-nothing bums pass," Asura said, shrugging. "Yes, we love you too, sensei," Ryu said sarcastically. "So when is the exam?" "A few weeks," the Tsukikage said. "I am sure that Asura-san will allow you to have the rest of the day off since you three did so well today." They all looked hopeful. He nodded, and they all smiled happily at him. "Sensei, why don't you come with us? We are going to get some food," Kasumi said, smiling at him. "Now why would you want me to come?" he asked, looking suspicious at them. "Well, on the last mission I realized that we don't know anything about you and I was hoping that we could get to know you a little better," she said, smiling weakly at him. The other two looked at him. "All right, I will come," he said, smiling. They made their way to a little ramen stand. As they sat, some of their classmates walked by, stopping when they saw them. "Look, it's the bottom of the barrel club," a boy with dirty blonde hair said. His teammates stopped to laugh. "I am surprised that they are here. I would have thought that they would have died or quiet by now," a girl with short auburn hair said. "Where's your sensei? Are they ashamed to be seen with you?" "He is here with us," Ryu said, acting as if what they were saying wasn't bothering him. "Where is he?" the blonde asked. Asura turned to face them. The three Jinan laughed at the sight of him. He just smiled as he looked past the three kids. "Akane, I thought you would have trained your students to have more respect," he said, turning back to his food. "I am sorry, senpai," a woman with dark red hair said. He looked to be about 23. "Senpai?" they all said in shock. "Yeah, he was my leader on many missions when I was a Chunin and became Jounin. I have only been a Jounin for 4 years now." "Senpai has been a Jounin for 6 years now, I think," she said. "So sensei is a badass. By the way he acts you would never know," Ryu thought to himself as Asura was working on his 6th bowl of ramen. "So senpai, are your student entering the Chunin exam?" "Yeah," he said as he ordered another bowl of ramen. She turned to the three students who were now watching their sensei eating. "I feel sorry for you guys, but you are also lucky," she said, smiling at them. "Why do you say that?" Ryu asked. "I understand you feeling sorry for us, but how are we lucky? He is a madman. He is hard, but I'm sure you learned a lot from him," she said, still smiling. "He hasn't taught us anything. He tells us to do something but never told us how to do it," Ryu asked, jumping up, pointing at him. "He is crazy." To all their surprise, she saw giggling. "Would you have rather him, baby? You not able to find your own weakness, your own strengths? I hated when I studied under him at the time, but now I am happy that I had the chance." "Well, senpai, I have bothered you enough, and I know how dangerous it is to bother you when you are eating, so my students and I will be on our way." "I can't wait to see how strong your students are," Asura said after finishing his 9th bowl. He got up, leaving money on the counter. "You three enjoy the rest of your day," he said, vanishing. "Wow, I never knew how much people respected sensei," Kasumi said. "I knew he must have been good to be a Jounin with his own team at his age, but to the point where older Jounin call him senpai." They noticed that Emi was sketching something on a napkin. It almost looked as if it could have been a clan symbol. "That is so cool," Ryu said. A smile crossed his face. "And it gives me an idea," he said, grabbing his teammates by the arm and pulling them along to a weapons and armor shop. It smelled of old people and cats. But they only saw one cat, a really fat cat that was sleeping on the counter. It didn't seem to be bothered by their arrival. "Yo, Gramps," Ryu called into the shop, and an old man walked into sight, frowning at the greeting. "What is it that you need?" he said, smiling at Ryu when he saw he had company. "I was wondering if you could design us some light armor with this one it," he said, smiling. "For the future Tsukikage, of course," he said, smiling. He took their measurement and told them to come back either tonight or first thing in the morning. The three decided that they would meet up later to pick up their armor. They went their separate ways for the time being. "Summoning jutsu," Asura said as a little one-tailed fox appeared before him. "Hello, Ichiro, are you ready to train?" Then Little Fox nodded, looking a little timid, but when they started, the little fox was completely different. It attacked with great speed, forcing Naruto to use his Sharingan to keep up with his movements. Both dodge and weave the other's attack, leaving the area that they were training at in ruins. "Alright little buddy, I will see you again," he said, scratching the little fox behind the ears, causing him to kick his back leg in pleasure. When he stopped, the little fox vanished. It was strange, most of the time the more tails a fox had the more powerful it was, but the little one was the third strongest fox. Only the 9 and the 8-tailed foxes were stronger, and none would ever match the QB because they were created from his power. The one-tailed fox was the one he trained with the most. There was something about him that made him think of a baby Kurama. That night the 3 Genin went back to the old man's shop. He looked pleased to see them. He handed them all a box, then he pulled out a bundle. "I am proud of you, Ryu, so I have some gifts for you and your teammates." He unwrapped the bundle, revealing weapons. They are made with a special metal that can be manipulated with the user's chakra, especially elemental chakra. "A little bird told me that you 3 are going to take part in the Chunin exam," he said, looking at their shocked faces. Ryu grabbed the twin blade, with the look of a child in a toy store. Kasumi picked up a little katana, while Emi was looking at the daggers. "You're the greatest, Gramps," Ryu shouted. "Thank you, sir," Kasumi said, bowing her head. "Thank you," Emi said, doing the same thing. They all said their goodbyes before they went home. It was a week before the start of the Chunin exams. Asura was waiting for his team at the main gate to the village. When his team arrived, they were wearing new armor. Ryu was wearing a sleeveless black shirt, and detected sleeves that started right under his shoulders that stopped at the wrist. Both the sleeves and shirt were reinforced in place to protect vital spots. He also had black pants and ninja sandals. He had 2 blades strapped to his back. Kasumi was wearing something similar. She had a sleeveless shirt but she had a jacket that stopped halfway down her belly. The sleeve stopped at her wrist, and she also wore black pants and ninja sandals. She had a katana strapped across her waist. Emi's outfit was a lot like the other 2, but her arms were bare and she wore shorts along with fingerless gloves and 2 long daggers also across her waist. And they all had a strange symbol over their hearts. "Did I miss something?" he asked, looking at his team. "We are a team, and we are the greatest team, and when people see us they will know," Ryu said, smiling. "Or they will know what I know," Asura said. "And what is that?" Ryu asked. "That you 3 are idiots." "You know, Sensei, you are not a very nice person," Ryu said, frowning. Akane's team soon showed up. Akane smiled at the sight of his team. "I didn't think that even you would make your team wear uniforms," Akane said. "No, they chose to do that on their own," he said, shrugging. "Well, I think it is a good thing. It builds team unity." "So are we the only groups going?" Asura asked, scratching his chin, sounding nonchalant. "I think so," she answered. So with that they went on their way. It took longer for them to get there than it normal would have if he wouldn't have been traveling with a bunch of Genin. A few days later they arrived at the Hidden Leaf village. They noticed the second that they arrived that there was already fight going on. A man carrying something on his back that had hair sticking out the top was holding up a much younger boy, who was wearing a long scarf, by his shirt. Ryu started to walking towards them. "Hey guys, look at the Catman. I wonder if he has his own superhero theme song," he called back to his team. "Who the hell are you calling Catman?" He-Man snapped. "Who do you think, Catman? But I thought cats liked playing with string, not playing with dolls and touch on little boys," Ryu said, smiling. "This isn't a doll and I don't like touching little boys," he snapped back. "You don't, Catman? That not what it looks like from where I'm standing." Then he noticed a blonde girl who was standing in shock that someone would say these things. "Let me guess, you are his sister." "Yes, how did you know?" she asked, looking a little shocked. "In my experience, only 2 types of girls would stand next to a man without laugh when he looks like this. 1 is a girlfriend and 2 is a sister. I know you're not his girls for 2 reasons, he said, putting up 2 fingers. "And what would those be?" she asked, smiling as her brother got madder and madder. "1 is the obvious, you're too pretty to with a guy like him," causing her to blush slightly as he dropped 1 finger. "And the other is he likes little boys." "That's it, you have insulted me for the last time," he shouted, dropping the little boy. "Are you sure? I thought I just got started," he said, still smiling. The man who looked like a cat grabbed him. "I am honored that you think I am attractive, but I'm not into guys, and if I was they would be the ones running around dressed like an oversized cat. I am sure there is a daycare around here. You should be able to find boys more to your test there." Kankuro raised his fist to hit Ryu in the face. "Kitty has a bad temper, maybe he needs to be neutered. Maybe that would fix his attitude," Kasumi said, walking up to them with her hand on her katana. "That's enough, Kankuro, you're an embarrassment," a red-haired boy with teal eyes said, appearing behind them. He stepped up to the Kankuro and spoke in a low tone that everyone heard clearly. "If you embarrass me again I will kill you." His eyes fixed on Kasumi and Ryu, but he didn't say anything for a moment. "Let's go," he finally said, and the 2 followed. When they were gone she slapped Ryu upside the head. "What the hell are you doing?" she shouted at him. "I'm sorry," he said, looking scared. "Thank you, my name is Konohamaru," he said happily. "No problem," he said, rubbing the back of his head where Kasumi had hit him. Emi had walked up and hit him upside the head when he finally removed his hand. "Why did you do that?" Because I felt left out, she said in the same bored tone. A blonde-haired boy ran around the corner. There you are, Konohamaru, he said. Then he looked up. Kasumi? Hello Naruto, she said, smiling slightly. You know each other? Ryu asked, looking between them. Yeah, we met during the mission in the waves, she said sheepishly. Soon the dark-haired boy had appeared. He looked shocked to see her there. Well, it was good to see you too, but we have to find our sensei. Meanwhile, Asura and Akane made their way to Hokage Tower. Are you sure it was smart to leave your team like that? She asked, looking back a little worried. No, but I am sure someone will bail them out if they get into trouble, he said nonchalantly. Do you have any confidence in your team? He walked, rubbing his chin, then finally said, no. Akane tried not to fall over as they walked through the door of the tower up the stairs into. They knocked on the door, entering when they heard the welcome. Hello, we are here to sign our teams up for the Chunin exam, Asura said to the young blonde Hokage. Very well, he said, pulling out a scroll and a pen. They walked up and filled out the paperwork. Asura left first. He wanted to see how much things had changed since the last time had been here, about 9 years ago. As he walked, he heard a cry of "Leave me alone." He walked in the direction to see what was going on. A young girl. She looked to be about a year younger than him. She was in a group of young boys around her age. When someone tells you to leave them alone, you should, especially a young girl, he said, smiling as he walked up to the group. Who are you? One of the boys asked. Me, that's not really here or there, is it? He said, rubbing the back of his head. Why don't you leave, if you know what's good for you? Another of the boys said. Are you threatening me? He asked, still smiling. Because if you are, that is not very nice or smart, seeing how none of you are at my level. But I will leave because I don't really feel like fighting right now. He walked up to the girl. My name is Asura. My name is Naoko. But why are you telling me your name? She asked. She had blue eyes just like. So if his family wouldn't have died, he would have had a little sister. You should never talk to strangers, but now I am not a stranger, he said, smiling. Then he vanished along with her. She was outside the Hokage Tower. There you go, now they should leave you alone for a while anyway, he said, smiling. Would you like to get food, as my way of saying thank you? She asked, blushing slightly. If it is ramen, then of course, he said, smiling. Where the hell is that bastard leaving us in an unknown village? Kasumi said, grumpy. Alright, we need to find all the ramen stands and we should find sensei. Finally they found him, but they stopped when they saw him talking to a blonde girl. I hate all of the attention that people give me. Just because I am the daughter of the Hokage, she said with anger in her voice. Can I tell you a story? He asked, putting down his chopstick. Sure, I guess. There were once two boys. One was a complete loser and the other was genius. Everyone hated the loser for reasons unknown to him. He had no family, no one to care for him. He was alone. The girl he loved hated him. Then there was a genius. Everyone loved him. He was cold to everyone and yet they still loved him, even the girl the loser loved. He had a family at one point, but by this time his entire clan was killed by his older brother. The loser barely passed the Genon test. The genius passed with flying color. What is the point of telling me this? Let me finish my story, he said, smiling. These two boys became friends, because they shared a bond that no one else did. They were alone. They saw each other as rivals as well as best friends, both working to meet their goals, their dreams. The loser wanted to become the great Kage and the genius wanted revenge. Their friendship became strained because loser's powers were growing at an incredible rate. During the Chunin exam, they saw how strong the loser was, his skills impressing everyone time and time again. First by defeating a genius from a high-ranking clan, then by defeating a monster that was about to kill the girl he loved. Everyone believed it to be the genius who beat the monster, but it wasn't, and he was becoming jealous of his friend's powers. He finally had enough when he met his brother again, and his brother didn't care about him. He was only interested in the loser for the same reason everyone hated the boy. Finally the genius left the village in search of power. The loser left the village following after his best friend to bring him back. The path to find his friend was difficult, but when he finally found him, Asura stopped remembering what happened next. There was a large fight. The loser failed to bring his friend back. After he returned home, he left soon after to train to become stronger so he could bring his friend back safely. 3 years later he returned a new man, stronger than any of them thought possible, and over the next few years he searched for his friend, learning that his friend had killed his brother, waiting for him to come home since he had finished what he had set out to do. But it never happened, and the loser soon learned why, the truth that his friend had learned. His family was not killed, just his brothers, but by another man under orders of the village, and he was going to have revenge on the village that took everything from him. The friends met again, learning that they had more in common than the genius would like to admit. Like what? She said, hanging on to every word he said. They both lost everything in the name of the village. They both hated the people of the village. One hated them for hating him, the other hated the fact that their happiness came at the cost of him losing everything. The major difference came down to these two was how they went about it. One wanted to destroy the village, the other wanted to change it, change how the people viewed him. And now everyone loved him for all he had done for them. But he gave up his dream for the friend that everyone once loved but now hated. Why would he do that? He said, how can I become a cage if I can even save my friend? But the point of this story is you have the power to change how people see you. If you don't want to be known as the Hokage's daughter, do something so he becomes known as your father, Asura said smiling. I have one question for you, she said looking amazed at him. What is it? Is that a true story? Yes, I know them, both of them, from this rather sad tale. It can make you laugh and it can make you cry, he said smiling. There was a loud whack as he was hit on top of the head. I will make you cry, an angry voice said, pulling him away from his unfinished ramen, tears running down his face. But my ramen, he cried as everyone stared. Your brother has been looking for you, a lazy voice said as Kakashi appeared reading his book. Kakashi-sensei, is he taking part in the Chunin exam? She asked, watching him being dragged off. No, he replied. Then why is he here? He is here for the exam. His students are taking part, he said, flipping the page. What do you mean students? He is a jounin. He can't be any older than Naruto and Sasuke, she said in shock. This is not the first time he has been to this village. He came here about 8 years ago. Why? To participate in the exam. He became the youngest Chunin in history, then the youngest jounin. If I had to guess, his skills would be somewhere around that of the Kages. So he is nice, powerful, and cute. What a combination. Be careful who hears you say things like that, Kakashi said smiling. Most of all, your father, he thought. The cries of my poor uneaten ramen could still be heard. Sensei, that story that you told her, why did you do it? Kasumi asked. It was something that she needed to hear, he said, remembering the ramen he left behind. Well, since you three ruined my meal, I am going to ruin your week up to the exams. She stopped letting go of her sensei and the other two looked horrified. He looked around and when saw who he was looking for, smile appeared on his face. Wait right here, he said, walking to the young man in green spandex. What do you think he is going to do to us? Ryu asked, sounding like he was on the verge of tears. When their sensei returned, he was not alone. He was with a boy with a bowl haircut and bushy eyebrows. We are going to do some sparring tournament style, one-on-one, then winner against winners. The winner gets a prize and the losers have to run. How many laps do you think they should have run around the village? He asked, turning to the boy next to him. How about 500 laps on our hands? He said, fire appearing in his eyes. Sounds good. 500 laps on your hands. Taijutsu only, no weapons. No, I will allow you all to choose who you want to fight, he said, a sadistic smile appearing on his face. I choice spandex, Ryu shouted. Don't hurt him too bad, Asura said. Don't worry, I won't, Ryu said, cracking his neck with a smile on his face. I wasn't talking to you, Asura said, laughing. The smile faded from his face. Ready, go. Lee vanished, reappearing right in front of him, landing a kick right in his chest. Ryu got up, rubbing it. He felt that one even through his armor. I am most sorry, did I overdo it? He asked, sound truly sorry. Don't be, he needs to learn a lesson, Asura said, smiling. And what would that be? Ryu asked, glaring at his sensei. Not to underestimate your opponent. What a most youthful lesson, he said, giving Asura the thumbs up. You will teach the winner of the next fight that same lesson also. Ryu got up to attack, but he was knocked right back down. The fight did not last that long, Lee beating Ryu easily. Kasumi won the next fight and so she was to fighting Lee? She wasn't going to be fooled by his appearance. He took down Ryu and he was the most skilled with taijutsu of the three of them. Lee got into his stance, she followed suit. She hoped that her speed would give her an edge, but he was faster than her, he was stronger than her. It was obvious that he was just a better fighter than her. That's enough, Lee, you have won, Asura said, getting up. What would you like as a prize? Sensei, how do you expect us to beat a genius like him? Ryu said, pointing at Lee. Don't be so rude. When you say someone is a genius, you are implying that they were born with the talent and not that they worked for it, he said coldly. Look at his hands. I am sure he is the first at the training field in the morning and the last to leave at night every day. Am I right? Yes, sir, he answered. So Lee, what is it that you want for winning? Allow me to train with you guys for today, he said, bowing. Very well, Asura smiled. Let's start with the 500 laps on your hands. Are you serious? Kasumi asked. Very. Now get to it before it becomes 600. They all did. Lee was the only one who was happy to do it, shouting encouragements to the rest of them as they did their laps. The flames of youth burns bright in them, Might Guy said, watching the students. Asura just nodded. It took many hours for them to finish, and when they finally did, all but Lee were on the ground, drained. What is next? He said, his voice full of passion. That will be all for today, but you are more than welcome to join us tomorrow, he told Lee. The same goes for the rest of your team. I have something fun planned for tomorrow. We will be here, Guy said, giving him the thumbs up, and Lee looked as if he was the happiest man alive. What time shall we be here? Lee asked. I don't know. What do you think, Guy? Asura asked. Sunrise, he said, giving the thumbs up, his teeth sparkling in the sunlight, and somehow the sun was setting behind him, though there was still an hour until sunset. Okay, you heard the man. Asura vanished. Lee showed them to their hotel that they would be staying in, and then invited them all to dinner after a long day of training. They agreed. Asura went to train ground 7, made a few hand signs, summoning jutsu, he said, and a little fox appeared. Yes boss, he said, his tail wagging. I want to check on my team for me real quick. The little fox ran off and Asura lay on the ground looking up at the sky, reminiscing on the days he would train here. It did not take long for the little fox to return. Sorry boss, I was followed, he said, hanging his head. By who? But his question was answered almost immediately when Naoko came into his line of sight. Hi Asura, she said happily. What are you doing out here? It's not safe for the Hokage daughter to be out here alone at this time, he said, picking up Ichiro and petting him. But I'm not alone, you are here, she said, smiling at him. True, he said, laughing. Can I pet him? He is so cute, he said, sitting next to him. He is not cute, this is the face of a killer, he said, picking him up and showing her his face. His big brown eyes glinted in the fading light, which made him even cuter. She snatched him and began to hug him tightly. She set him in her lap and started petting him. He did not try to move. Traitor, he said to the fox that looked up at him, then put his head back down on her lap. The sun had almost completely set when he sensed 2 chakras coming towards them. Naoko, a voice called. Naruto, I am over here, she called, and Naruto and Sasuke came into sight. What are you doing out here? Naruto asked, then his eye fell upon Asura, frowning. Who is this? His name is Asura, she said, smiling. And this is? She looked round, but the little fox was gone, causing her to pout. So Asura, are you in the exams? Sasuke asked, seeing his forehead protector. Not really, he answered. What does that mean? Sasuke asked, frowning. My students are in the exams and I am sure that you have met them, he said, smiling. Very funny, you expect us to believe you have students and you don't look any older than us, Naruto said, frowning. I guess you two don't remember me, it was almost 10 years ago. I wanted to play with you two and your friends, but you guys didn't want anything to do with me. You called me Cyclops, I believe, that is when I took the exam, he said, smiling. It's true, Kakashi-sensei told me about it, or the part about him taking the exam, not that you guys were mean to him, she said, glaring at her brother and his friend. Anyway, you guys should start heading back. We would want anything to happen to the children of the Hokage and one of the 4 remaining Uchiha. What do you mean 4? There are only 3, Sasuke said, examining Asura. Whatever you say, my point is, it's not safe, you never know what's out here. They didn't argue. They all started to leave as it started to rain. Back at the hotel, the 3 Jonin sat wondering where their sensei was. How did sensei know that we couldn't beat that Lee guy? Kasumi asked after a while of them sitting in silence. Maybe he saw him training earlier, Ryu said. Lee was a sore subject for him, he said. Getting beat by an idiot in green spandex was the most embarrassing thing that had ever happened to him. After a few more hours and their sensei hadn't returned, it was now pouring outside. Kasumi was worried and told the others she was going to go find him. She had no idea where to start looking for him. Then she remembered something he had said. Don't be so rude. When you say someone is a genius, you are implying that they were born with the talent and not that they worked for it. Look at his hands. I am sure he is the first the training field and the last to leave every day. Am I right? He was a powerful ninja and she had never seen him train, but he didn't seem to like the word genius, so that must mean he trains hard. But she never seen him train, so that would imply he trains after he trains them. So he was probably at the training grounds. She started running towards the area that they had used. She stopped as she saw something in the distance. She ran over to see her sensei. He was sitting there, not moving a single muscle, the rain running down his shirtless back. He got to his feet. Had he noticed her? But he acted as if he hadn't. He held up his hand, chakra built up in it in a prefect sphere, and he slammed into tree, destroying it. She stood there in awe at the raw power of her sensei. He picked up his things, vanishing. What are you doing out? She heard Asura say from behind her. I was looking for you, I thought you might have gotten lost, she said quickly. Now why would you think that? You aren't the most reliable person, she said, turning to face him. He was smiling at her. Okay, I guess that's fair, he said, grabbing her, pulling her close. She felt the heat rise in her face and she was unable to look at him. She was happy that he didn't seem to notice. They both vanished, reappearing at the hotel. Good night, Asura said, entering his room. Good night, she answered, her face still red and glad that it was dark so he could see. The next morning Asura's team went to the training grounds they had been at yesterday. They were all so scared that they could not eat, because when Asura said fun, it was usually only fun for him and a nightmare for them. When their sensei arrived, he was holding a bundle and they did not want to know what was in it. Soon they were met by Guyan, who they assumed was his team. Besides for Lee, there was a man with dark hair and eyes that had pale lavender eyes that made him look blind, and a girl with brown hair tied it in buns and she had brown eyes. You can't be serious, we are training with these failures, the boy said looking at them in disgust. Neji, that is a most unyouthful thing to say, Lee said frowning. Lee, is right, it is good to train with new people, give you a new outlook, Guy said striking his nice guy pose. So my youthful friend, what do you have in mind for today? First off, I want you to meet your target, Asura said unwrapping the bundle. His team was latterly shacking in fear. Then a little fox came into sight. None of them knew what to make of the little fox that was tilting his head back and forth studying them all. The team that catches and brings him to me will get a prize, and the team that fails to catch it, well, let's just say you don't want to know, he said, a wicked grin appearing on his face. You can't be serious, you are not going to make us catch that fox, Tenten said. Guy just smiled at her, her head fell. You only have 2 hours to catch him, and you will start on my signal. Asura set the little fox on the ground and took a few steps back. Ichiro, make sure you don't overdo it. How weak do you think we are, giving us 2 hours to catch a stupid little fox? Neji asked, glaring at the little fox who was sitting looking between them all. Careful what you say, Hyuga, you don't want to make him mad, he said. You all will start now. The little fox did not move. Neji walked up to the little fox, whose expression changed from one of curiosity to one of anger. His eyes became cold, his posture was now more threatening, aggressive. Neji took a step back at the chakra spike. What wrong, tough guy? I thought you said he was just a stupid little fox. Ryu taunted. No one is going to win if you all just stand there, Asura said smiling. You know, sensei, you're right, Ryu said before he ran at the little fox and dove to catch him, but the little guy just hopped out of the way, then ran between Neji's legs past Lee and jumped over Tenten. What the hell, bastard sensei, Kasumi shouted, that is not a fox. A fox can't do that. That's not all he can do, Asura said, still smiling. Can you catch him? Ryu asked, pulling his face up from the dirt. Yes. Watch, Ichiro, come here boy. The little fox ran up to Asura, sitting at his feet. See, sensei, you really are a bastard, Kasumi said coldly. He just smiled. You guys talk to your sensei like that? Tenten asked in shock. If it's true you can get mad, Emi said, slowly making her way to the little fox who sat at Asura's feet like an obedient dog. You guys realize your time is ticking away, and I am sure bushy brow and I can think of many fun things for you all if you can't catch him, Asura said as the little fox began to run into the trees, the 6 Shinnon following. Do you think they will catch him? Guy asked. No, Asura said, not really caring. I didn't think so. In the forest, the little fox was just sitting there watching them as she and her teammates closed in on him, but he dodged their attempts just as he did all the others. She started wondering why their sensei would put them against another team with that was so difficult to take down. It was like the bell test with the only 2 bells. She knew what they had to do. There was no other way for them to catch the fur ball. We have to find Lee and his team, Kasumi said, turning to her team. Why? Ryu said, jumping away from her in shock. We have done something like this before. The bell test, Emi answered. She nodded at Ami's word, then they both turned to Ryu, whose head fell in defeat. They ran off looking for Guy's team and they found them. Lee was rubbing his red face. Tenten was covered in dirt. Neji looked pissed as the little fox sat on his head looking innocent. How can something so cute be so devilish? She asked herself aloud. Ryu lunged at the little fox and he jumped out of the way, causing Ryu and Neji to crash into each other. Thanks for breaking my fall, Ryu said smiling. Get off me, Neji snapped, pushing Ryu off. Fine, that's what I get for trying to be polite, he said sarcastically. Look you guys, we are not going to catch him on our own. I am sure that our sensei already knew this, Kasumi said as the little fox sat a rock looking at them. So then why would they have us do this if it is impossible? Tenten asked as Neji glared at the little fox. Because that is the kind of twisted mind that bastard sensei has, Ryu said, who was now having a staring contest with the little fox. It's not impossible, but we have to work together. It's like this bell test we had to take. He told us that if we didn't get a bell that we would fail and have to go back to the academy. She started before Neji cut her off. That's great for all of you all, but what does this have to do with anything? It has everything to do with it. There were only 2 bells and 3 of us. The whole test was set up in a way that made it so we would work together, but that is what he wanted us to do the entire time. She finished. Lee jumped to his feet. What are we waiting for? Lee said, the fire of youth burning in his eyes. Ryu shouted in frustration as he lost to the little fox in their staring contest. They sat scheming while the little fox fell asleep. When they were all knew their roles, they got in their positions and made started on the plan. Lee ran toward the sleeping fox and near fell over when he saw the little fox, who got up and yawning while he stretched, as Lee closed in on him with great speed. The little fox jumped out of the way and started running, but found his way impeded by Ryu. The little fox started in another direction. Neji jumped in front of the little fox, picking him, but quickly dropped him as he got bit. Emi picked up the Ichiro, his front paws and head resting on her arm while his little back paws and tail hung down. Cute, the girl squeaked at the sight of the little fox. They hurried back to Asura and Guy sensei. Very good, but you're all late, he said smiling. The students looked as if they could kill. "You all did well, my youthful friends," Guy said, striking a pose. "But you guys have confirmed what I believed," Asura said, nodding. "And what is that?" Ryu asked, sounding hopeful. "You all are incompetent," he said, striking the good guy pose, "and since you all failed," his expression changed from one of deep thought to one of that would send the strongest ninja running scared. "You will." He stopped as his eyes fell on a massager bird. "Well, it seems that you guys are in luck today. It seems I am needed elsewhere," he said, smiling again. "I will take over training your students while you are away as thanks for allowing us to have a morning warm-up with you," Guy said, giving him the thumbs up. "You three heard him, you are with him today, have fun," Asura said, vanishing from sight. Hidden in the mountain range, a man with a fox mask appeared through the thick fog high on a mountain peak. He cut his thumb, placing his palm on the mountain side. A door appeared. The masked man made his way into the passageway that had appeared before him. It led into a large room with 12 chairs in the middle of the room, along with a table, and in front of each seat had the symbol for each village encased in a circle made of all the village symbols repeated over and over again. In the center of the table were the letters TWPC, which stood for Tactical War Privation Council. The TWPC was a closely guarded secret beyond that of an S-class secret. The only ones who know of its existence were those who belonged to it. TWPC was created shortly after the last war to help keep anything like it from happening again. Along the outer edges of the room there were more chairs. There were two more doors off out of this room that only the most senior member could get into, because one held the records of the TWPC, and the other held detailed records of everyday village down to every man, woman, child and pet. The masked man was not the first to arrive. There were two others waiting. One was a large shirtless man, who had tattoos covering his back and arms. He had black glasses and no hair. He wore a cheesy smile at the sight of the masked man. "Yo Killa," the man said before taking a swig of a bottle that was hidden in a paper bag. "Hello Shin-san, Aya-san," he said in his cool tone, turning to the second occupant in the room. She had purple hair that was in a ponytail. He didn't know if that was her natural color or if she dyed it that color. Her eyes were an amazing bluish-silver color. On her left shoulder there was an Anbu tattoo. Shin had his on his chest. On her left shoulder she had the symbol of the Hidden Mist Village on her arm, encircled by the other village symbols. Shin had a Hidden Lightning Village one over his heart. None of them wore forehead protectors while in the room. The shinobi of the TWPC were known as Ghost because they did not exist. Only the TWPC had the full records on these ninja. They are the best of the best from all over the shinobi world, and they had the ego to go with the title. Most were one level of the Kijis, and all had been in the Anbu at one point if they weren't now. "Why the hell do you always wear that mask? I know you're ugly, but you're not that ugly," Shin said, laughing. "I'm sure he's better looking than you," Aya said coolly. Asura didn't say anything. He just sat between the two ninja. After an hour all the seats around the edges were filled by ninja from all over, and a few hours all of the center seats were filled by elders from the ninja villages. When the last council member arrived, they signed scroll and sent it to the end of the table for the record keeper. "Well, does anyone have any concerns before we start into the real reason we have called this meeting?" Danzo asked from the head of the table. "The closer you were to the front of the table, the more important you were considered. Not because of the village, but your states in the council, how long you have been a member, and how highly the other regarded you." When no one said anything, Danzo spoke again. "Very well, on to business. It appears that the Akatsuki have started acting on their plans, but my intelligence has not been able to figure out what that is yet." A man from the Hidden Sand Village, he sat to the left of Danzo. "I think I have a contact that believes he knows what they are after, but we still can't act too rashly, until we know for sure," that Tsukikage said calmly. He sat directly to the right of Danzo. "Our best bet is to send a small platoon and take them out quickly. We can minimize our casualties," Danzo said in reply to the Tsukikage's remarks. "Permission to speak?" Asura asked respectfully, getting to his feet. Everyone was taken aback by this. Ghost really said anything during the meetings. They just listened to the details and did as they were told. But he was no ordinary ghost, he was deaf. "Very well," Danzo said. "If you allow me to do this my way, and then there will be no need for any of us to die," Asura said, getting the attention of everyone in the room. "And how are you going to go about doing that?" A man Asura had never seen before spoke up. "Who are you?" Asura asked, completely ignoring the question. "I am Shinzu, a council member from Hidden Lightning Village," he said with pride. "Does it really matter as long as the job gets done?" he asked coolly. "Shinzu-sama, you should know who you are speaking to. That is the Sharingan no Shinigami," that Tsukikage said, his eyes fixed on the young councilman. "The same man who took down the Uchiha clan single-handedly?" he asked. He looked calm, but there was a trace of fear in his voice. "I want a team of my own choosing, and everything else is a need-to-know basis." "And if you fail?" the man from the Hidden Sand Village asked. "Then you will have plenty of other capable shinobi to finish the job," Asura said calmly. "Very well, all in favor of allowing Sharingan no Shinigami deal with this problem?" Danzo said from the head of the table. All 12 members said vote in favor of this course of action. So who will make up your team? Tsukikage asked. Shin and Aya, he said. They were the only ones among the ghosts that didn't keep their distance from him. He could sense their fear, he could sense all their fear, but Shin and Aya did their best to mask it. Very well, you three have your mission, now down to political agenda, the Hidden Sand Village councilman said. What shall we do with the Hidden Sound Village? There are rumors going around they are headed by Orochimaru, who is a member of the Akatsuki. That won't be a problem, he will be dealt with along the rest of the Akatsuki, the Tsukikage replied. And if they still wish to follow the groundwork Orochimaru has lain down? The rep for the Hidden Lightning Village asked. They will be treated as all clans or small villages that threaten the peace that we have worked for. They will be eliminated, Danzo answered coolly. Then he turned to Asura. After you have disposed of the Akatsuki, we will send a massager of peace to the Hidden Sound Village, and if they refuse us we will send you and your team to clean up. Very well, Asura said, bowing his head. If that is all, I send word if we learn anything new, Danzo said. The ninja around the room waited until the council cleared, and then one by one the shinobi around the room began to vanish until only Asura, Shin and Aya remained. What I need you two to do is to come back to the Hidden Leaf Village with me, he said calmly and as they walked away from the council room, closing it behind them. Why? Aya asked. Something they want is there, so that is where we will start, he said, grabbing both of them then teleporting outside the Hidden Leaf Village. In a puff of smoke a young boy with dark hair stood before them. Is this what you really look like? Aya said in shock. No. This is just one form I take to stay hidden. So what do we call you? Shin asked. Asura, he replied. Asura, it suits you, Aya said. Keep an eye open, and if you see anything at all call me before you do anything, he said to them as they vanished. The sun was setting as he walked into the village. He wondered if his students were still training or if they had finished for the day. He truly hated going to those meetings. Those old fools don't think twice about having a clan eliminated because they aren't the ones who saw the bloodshed, the ones who felt the loss of the loved ones. The ones who witnessed the last few moments of peace before the ensuing chaos ending in eerie silence. He personally was responsible for the massacre of 4 clans and countless political heads. He found that he had walked to the memorial stone without even realizing it. He looked down the list without looking for any name in particular. He read the names of those who would give up so much for this village just as he had, but the names of the nearest and dearest to him weren't on here. The world would never know, they couldn't understand what they had given up because the people were never existed. Looking for some that you have lost? A kind voice asked. Yeah, but I won't find their names won't be on here because no one has realized their sacrifice and no one but me will ever truly know, he said, still looking at the stone. That sounds like a heavy burden to carry, the memory of unknown fallen heroes, the old man said, putting a pipe to his mouth. Not as hard as it must have been for them giving up everything, and their names won't even be remembered for it. So for them I will happily carry that burden, Asura said, turning to see the former Hokage. You are wise beyond your years, my boy, he said, smiling. I was forced to grow up fast. I always wondered how things would be now if things had started off different, but I think I might have found my answer, he said, looking at the old Hokage, smiling. Is it what you thought it would be? Yes and no. I think I would have been happier, but I don't think I would realize how lucky I truly was unless I experienced what I did. But it wasn't all bad. I am sure there are those who have had it worse than me, I just haven't met them yet. I mean, I had the honor of met some great heroes, but, he said, turning from the man back to the stone, not finishing what he was going to say. I am sure that you or will be someone's great hero, the old man said, cause Asura to smile. You know, at first I was fighting to fix the past, but now I am fighting for a better future. I have found those worth fight for. A shinobi can only be truly strong when he has something to fight for, the third said, walking away. There once was a man born a monster, lived his life a hero, but soon realization of the awful truth dawned on him. He was forger of new worlds, but in order to do so he had to destroy the old one. Everyone he hated, everyone he loved, everyone he never knew. Bearing the sins of all men, it was something he was more than happy to bear if it meant a better tomorrow, Asura said. What are you talking about? The third asked, confused. I guess it doesn't matter, I just wanted to thank you for everything, Asura said, turning to face the third once more. Why is that? He said, chuckling. I am sure one day you will find out. Well, good night, Sarutobi-sama. Then he vanished. When he arrived back at the hotel, his students were asleep in the common area. It appeared that they had been waiting for him to return. Without making a single hand sign, 2 clones appeared and each of the Asuras picked up a student and took them to their respective rooms. Maybe he would give them the day off tomorrow, he thought to himself as he went to bed. The next week passed quickly, but in that week Asura's team realized that he was acting strange, rarely smiling. He always seemed to have something on his mind. His training sessions were even easier. And at night he wouldn't return until long after they were asleep. If he returned at all, on a few occasions they would ask what was bothering him, and every time he would put on a smile and say, nothing. Nothing at all. It was the night before the Chunin exam and Asura had returned to the hotel earlier than he had all week. He had just been briefed on what his subordinates from the TWPC had learned about the Akatsuki, and it seemed that his hunch was right. They were making their way to the Hidden Leaf village. But they had deployed more than one unit, which intrigued. It seemed they were trying to gather as many of the Jinchuriki as quickly as possible. But this time it would be different. He would kill them all no matter how many there were, and no one else would have to die. It took him a minute to realize that it was too quiet. It was still too early for his team to be asleep. He didn't even feel their chakra signals in the hotel. He left to go find them. It did not take long for him to do so. They were at the training ground sparring with each other. It appeared that he was not the only one keeping an eye on his students. "Yo," said a cool voice from up in a tree that overlooked the training grounds. "Hello Kakashi-senpai," he answered, not looking up at the tree. "So how long have they been out here?" "I don't know, most of the day, only stopping to get food, but today is not the first day. I noticed that they have been stay out late for the last few nights," Kakashi answered in his lazy tone. "So why are you out here?" he asked, smiling at his students. "Someone should keep an eye on them." Asura felt a little guilty at Kakashi's comment. "Well, I have to get going," Kakashi said. Asura heard the sound of a closing book, then a puff as Kakashi vanished in a cloud of smoke. After a few minutes he noticed something interesting. Kakashi's team was making their way to the training ground. "Hey there Kasumi," Naruto called out. She stopped to see who had called her, and so did the rest of her team. "Oh, hi Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura." Naruto beamed at her as he walked up her, and Sasuke gave a little grin, but Sakura frowned at her teammates' reaction to the foreign kunoichi. "Hey, what about us?" Ryu asked as their fellow Jonin ignored them. "What about you?" Sasuke asked coolly. This pissed Ryu off, but he took a deep breath. "So why do you two keep sniffing around her like some kind of lost dog? It's obvious you two like her and she doesn't feel the same about you," Ryu retorted. This caused Sasuke to give Ryu a look that would have made most cower, but Ryu smiled at the look. "Did I hit a sore spot?" The great Uchiha not used to hear he can't have something he wants. "Or does he want it because he can't have it?" Ryu asked, smirking. Sasuke was just getting angrier with every word he spoke. "If she liked someone, it would be a better man than you," he finished, patting the pissed Uchiha on the back as in a gesture of friendship before turning to leave. "Ryu, watch out," Kasumi said as Sasuke charged Ryu with a Chidori. Before anyone knew what had happened, Sasuke lay on the ground staring up into the cold blue eye of Asura. His face was hard, the killer intent leaking from the young Jounin made them all want to run in fear. "What the hell do you think you're doing, trying to kill one of my students?" he said. His voice was calm, natural. It was worse than if he would have shouted. Sasuke glared at Asura. "You think just because your little ego got hurt it gives you the right to kill a man with his back turned to you? I never thought the brother of Itachi, one of the last Uchiha, would be such a coward." Asura pulled Sasuke to his feet. "A name does make you special, it doesn't make you better than others, and people who believe it does are fools. They are mad they can't get glory of their own, so they take the glory of those who came before them." "Who are you to lecture me, an unknown ninja from an unknown village?" Sasuke retorted. Asura smiled, but it didn't reach his good eyes. A flash of crimson came across his visible eye. "You don't get it," he said, shaking his head. "Tell me Sasuke, what do you want to be known for? Your name, your action, and who do you think will remember you?" Sasuke didn't answer him. "I once knew a man. He started off as a hopeless loser, and a self-proclaimed super pervert. He will probably go down in history as one of the most powerful ninja ever born, but that is not how I will remember. I will remember him because he installed in me the idea that we can have peace in this imperfect world. I will remember he died so that we could live. He died a hero. A hero, that's how I want to be remembered, even if it's only a few who see me as a hero. Now how do you really want to be remembered? I want you all to think about it. Let's go," he said calmly to his team. The next morning they three Jonin were nervous, not knowing what to expect in the upcoming exam. All they knew was that they had to go to room 301 in the academy. Their sensei had shown them the way, but once they reached the front door they were on their own. They stepped through the threshold up the stairs. On the second floor they noticed a bunch of their fellow Jonin were trying to get through a door. "I thought we were in 301. This is only the second floor," Kasumi said. "Genjutsu," Emi replied simply. "What?" Ryu asked. "There has been genjutsu placed on this room," Emi elaborated. "Release," she whispered. Everyone looked around, but Asura's team just continued up the stairs after dissolving the illusion. When they opened the door they were to enter, and the moment they did they were overwhelmed by the number of people in the room to take the exam. "Wow, I didn't think there would be such pretty girls taking this exam," they heard from a boy with a bluish-gray coat, red markings on his face, and he had a dog in his coat. Kasumi smiled weakly, and Emi just turned to him with her normal expressionless face. But they just continued on their way. Sometime later Naruto and Sasuke entered the room, both looking a little beaten up, and Sakura coming behind them looking a little concerned. She turned away as they turned in their direction. None of them had forgiven Sasuke for trying to kill Ryu. They heard a sudden outburst, the great Uchiha and Namikaze rejected by a girl. Who would have ever thought? The boy with the dog laughed. It's okay Sasuke-kun, Naruto-kun, she is a slut that plays with guys' hearts, Sakura said. I bet you she is asleep with both guys on her team, she said a little louder. Troublesome, a lazy voice said. Ryu started to go over to them but she grabbed his arm and shook her head. Ryu stopped but he continued to shoot them dirty looks. That is most unyouthful thing to say, they heard someone say. They knew who it was before even saw the man in the green spandex bowl cut and bushy eyebrows. She smiled a little that there was at least one person in this village that did think bad of her right now. You guys are creating quite the ruckus, a silver-haired man with glasses. Do you have a problem? Sasuke asked in an uncaring tone. No but they do, he said pointing to the group behind him and everyone in the room was glaring at them. Hello, my name is Kabuto, and I can tell you anything about everyone in this room, he said smiling. How can you do that? Naruto asked looking amazed. With these, he said pulling out a stack of blank cards. Okay, Naruto said skeptically. I will prove it. Tell me who you want me to look up? Kabuto said smiling. How about those pretty girls over there? Giving Sasuke and Naruto the cold shoulder, the boy with the dog said. But first do their teammate, Sasuke said glaring in his direction as he waved friendly at Sasuke. But why? Him, I don't care about him, the dog boy whined. Kiba, shut up, said a blonde girl. Well, sorry Ino, for wanting to know about the only girls with the ability to resist the princes of the hidden leaf, Kiba said crossing his arms. Wow, this guy is impressive. His name is Hayate Ryu. His strong suit is taijutsu, but he has a high leave for ninjutsu, but low genjutsu skills. He has done 30 D ranked missions, no C ranked missions and 2 B ranked missions, and one of them he took the lead. His sensei is. Well, isn't this interesting? Kabuto said frowning. What? Everyone asked. I heard about this guy but I didn't think he was still so young, Kabuto said looking up smiling. Yeah, we met him but he doesn't seem that impressive, Sasuke said bitterly. Look at it this way, he was the youngest Shin'an in history, then he was the youngest Chunin, making Jounin by the age of 6 and the youngest Anbu captain ever. He did this before the age of 8. This is before you all even started academy. Before him the fourth held the title for the youngest Jounin and Itachi was the youngest Anbu captain. Both of them were more than twice his age. But other than that there is not much known about him. Everyone shocked to hear this, even Asura's team, they knew that about him already, but to hear it put like that it seemed even more impressive when you compare him to what is said to be the strongest kage in the shinobi world. While you guys wanted to hear about the others on his team, he pulled out another card. Next we have Chienmi. Her strong suit is genjutsu, she is moderate ninjutsu level and the same goes for her taijutsu, same missions as Ryu. Finally we have Hisashi Kasumi, the last of the great Hisashi clan. She has a high level for ninjutsu, and her taijutsu and genjutsu aren't bad either. And all of them are skilled at elemental jutsu, all three with multiple already. So they are the biggest threats? Kiba asked. No, I would say either the Sand Shinobi or Hyuga Neji and his teammate Rock Lee, he said smiling. As you two know, he added smiling, but Naruto and Sasuke frowned. Sorry too soon for jokes. Alright you brats, shut up and take your seats. A scary man with scars, he wore a long black coat and a bandana with the hidden leaf symbol on it. They did as they were told. Kasumi found herself seated next to a boy with a ponytail that stuck up as if he was going for the pineapple look. He looked as if he really didn't want to be here. She guessed that he proclaimed that what his fellow shinobi were doing was troublesome. This is such a drag, he said to no one in particular. Yeah, she was right, it was him. She smiled as he put his head down on the desk. She noticed that Emi was sitting next to the boy she believed to be Kiba, who looked as if he wanted to talk to her but couldn't form any words. But when she saw Ryu she wanted to laugh. He was seated next to Sasuke. Apparently he decided the Uchiha would like the silent treatment too much, so he was talking to him non-stop. The Uchiha looked as if he wanted to kill. I said shut up you brats. Everyone fell silent. My name is Morino Aviki. I will be the proctor for the first part of the Chunin exam. The rules are simple, listen up, I will not repeat myself, I will not answer any questions and you all will remain silent. The first rule, you all start off with a perfect score, you lose points for incorrect answers, your team scores will be added together, but if one team member get a 0 the whole team fails. Second, you will lose 2 points every time that you are caught cheating. If you are caught cheating 5 times you and your team will fail the test. Third, when you have 10 minutes left in the test you will get the 10th and final question of the exam. You have 1 hour, now begin. Kasumi started going over the rules in her head quick, especially the part about cheating. The room was full of sentinels around the room to make sure that they don't cheat, but if they really didn't want them to cheat they would lose more than 2 points for being caught cheating, so that meant that they were supposed to cheat, just not get caught doing it. Thanks sensei, she thought to herself smiling. She cut her thumb and quickly made a few hand signs and a little kitten appeared on her lap who jumped on her shoulder. Ryu realized that they were supposed to cheat when they were getting the rules, But either way he thought he was going to cheat on this test, he thought, smiling to himself. He was sure that his team realized that they were supposed to cheat on this test. Emmy kept her eyes down so no one could see them, but they scanned the room for any movement of a pen on paper, and when she noticed someone writing, she copied their movement of their pen on her own paper. Outside the academy, Asura sat down at the academy from a nearby rooftop. "Yo," he heard as Kakashi sat down beside him, "are you worried about your student?" "I don't know, but I have taught them the best way I know how, and from here on out is seeing if they know how to use what I have taught them," Asura replied. "Are you worried about yours?" "Yes, if they fail that means I'm stuck doing more D-ranked missions." Asura laughed at this comment, remembering that evil cat that the Genin had to chance down every other day, it seemed like. "I guess that is true," he finally said. "You know something?" "What?" Kakashi said, reading his book. "When I was younger, I had two sensei. They drive me crazy and torture me, and I made a promise to myself when I became a sensei I wouldn't do that to my students. But now I know why they did it," he said, smiling as he watched the academy. "Because it made you stronger," Kakashi said. "No, because it's fun as hell," Kakashi nodded in agreement. A bird landed on his arm that had a scroll on his leg that Asura took, opening it. There was only one word written on the paper: ramen. "They know me too well," he thought, smiling. Kakashi looked curious at that Asura. "Some friends are in town for the Chunin exam and they want to go get ramen," Naruto explained. "Would you like to come along?" "Sure, I haven't eaten yet," Kakashi said, getting up. They both jumped down to the street below, making walking to the best ramen stand, Ichiraku Ramen Bar. When they entered in, there were two people waiting, one a purple-hair kunoichi and a bald shinobi who finally put a shit on covering all of his tattoos. "Hello," they said, but fell silent at the sight of Kakashi. "He is all right, guy. This is the great copycat ninja," Asura said, smiling. "I wonder what the legendary copycat ninja looks like. That mask," Aya said, smiling at him. "Don't worry, I will see what is under your mask and I will see what under your bandages," she said, turning to Asura. He just smiled as he sat down. "We heard we have some friends heading this way. They said they will miss the exams but they want to be here for the celebrations," Shin said as he picked up his bowl. "That's good, I will have to go out and greet them properly when they arrive," Asura said, smiling as a bowl of ramen was set before him and Kakashi. Aya was watching him through the corner of her eyes. He picked up his bowl. She began to smile but he turned away as he ate. She looked pissed. Both Asura and Shin slid away from her. Kakashi was oblivious to this, or he was a really good actor. Back at the exam, it's time for the 10th question, and this one has a different set of rules than the previous 9, Ibiki said, getting their attention. "First, you don't have to receive the final question, but if you don't answer it, you and your team fail the test." "So why wouldn't we opt to answer the final question?" Sakura asked. Ibiki frowned at the question. "Because if you chose to hear the 10th question and you get it wrong, you don't just fail but you can never take the test again. But it won't affect your team. If they get it right they can pass," he said with a grin that could rival Asura's. "But if you opt not to answer the final question, you are free to take the test at some other time. So this question is all or nothing, it's your choice." Slowly, one after another, people started raising their hands, leaving the room along with their teammates. Finally no one else raised their hands. Ibiki looked around. It went from a field of over 150 down to about 42. "This is your last chance. Is there anyone else who would like to withdraw?" No one raised their hand. His face was stern. "Very well then, you all pass," he said, smiling slightly. "Wait, what?" Sakura shouted. "What about the 10th question?" "That was the 10th question," Ibiki said. "Are you really that thick?" Ryu said, smiling. Sakura glared at him. "So you knew?" Ibiki asked. "Yes, my sensei put us in these kind of positions all the time. Make one option better for one individual or one that seemed bad for you but good for the team overall. You are trying to see how we think, if we think about ourselves or of our team, am I right?" "Very good, and I am sure you figure out that the point of the other 9 questions. You wanted to see if we could gather information without being noticed while being watched," Kasumi answered. He smiled at her response. "If I do say so, it was rather obvious you wanted us to cheat with how the rules were set up." "Well, it didn't matter how the rules were set up, I was going to cheat either way," Ryu said, laughing. Ibiki was about to say something when someone came crashing through the window. "Listen up, maggots." A woman with light brown hair called out to the remaining students. "Hey Ibiki, you are losing your touch. There are a lot of them remaining." "No, this year's batch are smarter than normal," Ibiki said from somewhere behind a banner that had Anko written on it. "Well, that doesn't matter. When I'm done with them, at least half of them will be gone. Meet me at Battleground 44 tomorrow at 10 for further details," the woman they presumed to be Anko said before vanishing. "All right, you all can go," Ibiki said, shaking his head as he took down the banner and saw the broken window. They all left the room. Asura's team was pleased with themselves and they wanted to find Sensei as soon as possible so they could tell him the good news. They saw him walking talking to the masked Joun and Kakashi. "Sensei, guess what?" they said, running up to him. "There is an all-you-can-eat ramen buff that just opened up. he said, his eye glazing over. No, Emi said, his head fell in disappointment. We passed, Kasumi said, hugging him, but let go quickly. Very good, I am sure that Kakashi-senpai will take you out to celebrate, he said thoughtfully. Sensei, Kasumi whined. What, you don't want Kakashi-senpai to take you guys out? He asked, sounding confused. No, we want you to, Ryu answered while Emi nodded. He took a deep breath. But that means that I have to pay, Asura said, not sounding happy, but under their gaze he gave in. Fine, he finally said. They dragged him down the street, Kasumi hanging one arm, Emi on the other, and Ryu pushing him in the back. They went to a barbecue place. Though he didn't show it, he was very pleased with his team, watching them as they joked with one another. It was amazing how much things changed. It seemed like yesterday that they did not like each other. They had grown so much, in many ways. Right, Sensei? He heard Ryu say, snapping out of his daze. I'm sorry, I was in my happy place where I cannot hear you three, he said, smiling. You still are not a very nice man, Ryu said, frowning slightly. I was just saying that we will blow through the rest of the exam, he said, looking hopeful. No, it only get more difficult from here on out, he answered truthfully. You know, bastard Sensei, you're a killjoy, Kasumi said, pouting slightly. He smiled at her, causing her to turn slightly red. You three enjoy yourselves, he said, getting to his feet. Sensei, you're not going to leave us with the bill, are you? Emi asked in her usual calm voice. Well, of course not, you see I left my wallet, so I... He faltered under the looks they gave him. All right, I will pay the bill, he said, reaching in his pocket and dropping some money on the table, walking out. But as he went to leave, someone bumped into him. He looked down. Hinata. Her face turned bright red as he reached down to help her up. The image of her dying in his arms by his hand flashed across his mind. Hinata, what's wrong? Kiba said, not noticing Asura. Soon Kiba was followed by the rest of the rookie nine. I am sorry, Hyuga, Asura said politely. Who are you? And what did you do to Hinata? Kiba snapped. As for who I am, that is none of your concern, and, as for what I did to Hinata, I was merely being careless and bumped into her, he said, turning to Kiba. You must be here for the exam, Ino said. Yes and no, I have already passed the Chunin exam, he said calmly. Then why are you here? She asked. Because he is here with his students, came Sasuke's cold voice from the back of the group. When did you pass the Chunin exam? Shikamaru asked in his usual bored tone. Nearly 10 years ago, he said, smiling. Only Kakashi's students and the lazy ninja did not look surprised at the news. Yes, this isn't the first time we have met either. I had the pleasure when I came up here to take the Chunin exams, he said, smiling still, but as much as I would like to stay and chat, I have business to attend to. Bye now. He's not bad on the eyes, he heard Ino say. He grinned as he made his way down the street. As he walked past the park he used to frequent when he lived in the village, he heard crying. He stopped, turned to see a little blonde girl on the swing crying. He walked to her, kneeling beside her. What wrong, Naoko? He asked, smiling at her kindly. The stupid council, she said through her tears. What happened? They are trying to force me to marry someone I haven't met in another village, she said, crying. They said they need to form an alliance or something. If I can take care of it, promise me that you will stop crying, he said, lifting her head with his thumb. She nodded and he got up and vanished. Danzo's home. Danzo opened his door. There was someone there. He was sure that they weren't there to fight because they didn't even bother masking their considerable chakra. What do you want? He asked as a young boy stepped into sight. You know why I am here, Asura said. I am sure I don't, Danzo said calmly. Naoko Namikaze, ring any bells? What about her? A little birdie told me you're true to marry her off to a village, my village. The little bird also told me that she was happy about that. But that is not all that little birdie told. Something about a few ghosts, if you catch my drift. And don't bother using that little Sharingan on me, it won't work. What makes you think that I can help her? Danzo said, his voice still calm. Tell the others it is not necessary and I will make sure that is true, Asura said, started walking out. Who are you and why do you care? Danzo asked. It really doesn't matter, does it? You get your alliance and she doesn't have to marry someone against her will. Everyone is happy, he said, vanishing into thin air. Asura was leading his team to Battleground 44, also known as the Forest of Death. Should I tell them the other name, or should I let them learn that detail later? I wonder what I should have for dinner. Ramen, barbecue, ramen. Maybe I should cook something, maybe ramen. Asura was so lost in thought, the chakra heading towards. Okay, I will have ramen, but what type? Miso, chicken, beef, pork. There is also seafood. I like them also very mew. He was tackled in mid-thought as he heard thank you so much. You're the greatest. Asura looked to see Naoko. Who is she, sensei? For the first time in a long time he felt fear and he had no idea what he had done. Usually when girls were mad at him he had some idea what he had done. He turned slowly toward Kasumi, who was glaring at him. He smiled weakly. She's Naoko, He said, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that look. Whenever Sakura had that look, it always hurt like hell. Is she the reason you have been ditching us? Kasumi asked, her knuckles turning white. No, I have seen her when I wasn't with you guys, but it was mine. He didn't even finish his sentence. It seemed like she wasn't even hearing what he was saying. Naoko, what are you doing? He knew that voice it belonged. He turned to see Naruto and Sasuke. Asura helped me out. I don't know how he did it, but he did, she said, continue to hugging him. I would like to ask you to get off of our sensei, Kasumi said coolly. Why are you jealous? Naoko asked, smiling devilishly. No, Kasumi said, quickly turning red. So it won't bother you if I do this, she said, kissing him on the cheek. No, why would it? She said, her eye twitching, trying to keep herself from killing the blonde. He noticed Aya looking as if she wanted to start laughing at the two girls who were staring daggers at each other. I have to go, so I will see you guys in 5 days. He vanishing. 5 days? Where does he think he is going for 5 days? Kasumi asked, sound pissed. Maybe he has another girl on the side, Ryu suggested, smiling. What the hell do you mean? They both shouted at him. Nothing at all, he said, sweat running down his face, his eyes wide in fear. He has his own harem, Emi said coolly. Sensei isn't like that? Kasumi said softly. I still don't think he is all that special, Naruto said, pouting. Shouldn't you 6 be at the battleground? A voice asked from behind them. Kakashi was reading his book. They all went on their way, Kasumi wondering what was going on with Asura. She never took him as that type of guy, but what if Emi was right? She felt her face turn red at the thought. Deep in the forest. Hello, Kabuto, Asura said, walking up to the man who was tied to the tree chakra-enhanced rope. I wondered when they would stop playing around with me, Kabuto said, smiling. You're right, I'm not here to play, so let's go straight down to business, Asura said. You too, it might be better for you if you run along while I have a little chat with our friend. Are you sure? Shin asked. Very, Asura said. Aya and Shin wanted to know what was under that bandage, but they thought it best that they do as he said. His right eye formed a Sharingan, his left remained covered. Am I supposed to be afraid of that? If I was, I would be afraid of Kakashi, Kabuto said, smiling, but it faded when Asura started laughing. His eye morphed into something else. You think this is the same as Kakashi's? You couldn't be more wrong. He closed his eye, and when he opened his eye it was completely different, unlike anything he had seen before. This is what is known as a Mangekyo Sharingan. It is on a whole new leaf. The genjutsu created by this is a bitch. If you're lucky you will end up in the hospital for a few weeks, and if you're not, well, let's just say I can send your pathetic ass to hell 1,000 different ways, Asura said, smiling. So we can do this the easy way or the hard way, for you. I am not telling you anything, Kabuto said coldly. Very well, we will see what you won't tell me, Tsukuyomi, Asura said. The world of Tsukuyomi. Everything had turned black and red. Kabuto was in darkness, tied to a pole that was burning his back. We will be here for 72. I control reality here. So in other terms, here I am God. This is just genjutsu. This is just a genjutsu, Kabuto said after Asura stabbed him with a sword. If that makes you feel better, keep telling yourself that, Asura said, laughing. Kabuto was stabbed with a sword. He began screaming as he was stabbed over and over again for what seemed like hours, but he would be healed every time he closed his eyes and the hell would start all over again. So do you wish to talk yet? No, Kabuto spat, panting. Well, we still have 71 hours and 59 minutes and 59 seconds for you to change your mind, Asura said, smiling as more of him appeared surrounding the horrified Kabuto. Let's see if I can make you spill your darkest secrets. Kabuto's screams filled the deserted dimension. In the real world, Kabuto was yelling in pain. Aya and Shin appeared immediately. What did you do to him? We weren't even gone for 10 seconds. Shin said, looking at the limp Kabuto. We are going to take out his other teammates and we will enter in the forest of death to make sure Orochimaru doesn't make his move until we want him to, Asura said as his eye went back to normal before any of them could see it. What did you do to him? Aya asked him again. He didn't want to take, so I made him with a genjutsu, Asura replied. They vanished doing as they were told. He turned to see a snake slithering away, Kabuto's last-ditch effort to save himself. But he would be dealt with soon enough. At Battleground 44, Kasumi sat on the grass, still lost in thought, thinking about their sensei. She didn't know why she cared what he did or who he did it with. He was just her sensei, nothing more, at least that's what she kept trying to tell herself. She felt so stupid she could stop thinking of him. He was a bastard. Why could she stop thinking about him? He is not always a bastard, but he has his moments, a small voice said. He is unreliable, but he is always there when you need him the most, the voice said again. Kasumi, are you alright? Ryu asked, looking a little worried. Yeah, I am fine, she said, smiling. What is it? The guy with the strange cards just appeared and it seems like the proctor is going to let him have it, Ryu said excitedly, but he was disappointed that she did do anything to him. Since we are going to be in here for 5 days, what do you think Sensei is going to be up to? He asked after sitting down between Emi and Kasumi. He could be out with his girlfriend, Emi said. Kasumi pulled her legs to her chest, looking down at her feet. I am sure that is not true. I am sure he is bored out of his mind wishing we were with him at this very moment, Ryu said, putting his arm around her, smiling. Alright maggots, when I call your group number I want you to come up and get your scrolls and go to your assigned entrance. They did as they were told. The whole process took about an hour. At this point they were all feeling nervous. They had to find another team with the other scroll that they needed and then find their way to the center of the forest, and they only had 5 days to do it in. The other participants had seemed much scarier now than they did yesterday. None of them were smiling now. They all had one thing on their mind as they heard Onko shout, "Start! Finish this exam as soon as they can." They ran in at top speed hoping to find someone before someone found them. Barely a minute and they heard the screams of the first victims of the test. They all seemed to be thinking the same thing at that very moment. Had it been a team that got them, or was it something else? They continued for what seemed to be hours, but there was no sign of any team. But they had the feeling that they were being watched by something. It could be another team or something that wanted to make them lunch. Either way they did not like it. There was a presence ahead of them. They rushed towards it as quickly and quietly as they could. There were 5 people standing looking at each other, one of whom was Kabuto. He and his team stood before 2 hidden grass ninja. Kabuto whispered something to his teammates before he charged right at one of the hidden grass shinobi, his hand glowing with chakra, striking the man in the heart. Blood spilled from his mouth and he hit the ground. The other man tried to attack Kabuto, but he vanished into the ground, popping up behind him, striking him in the back of the neck, killing him instantly. The 3 of them looked on in horror, never truly realizing what they were up against until that very moment. "Kabuto, we are being watched," one of his teammates said. "It's fine," he said, making a few hand signs. He touched the 2 dead bodies and they jumped to their feet. Then they, along with the people that had been dead a second ago, vanished. "What the hell have we gotten ourselves into?" Ryu asked, falling to the ground, thankful that Kabuto decided not to kill them like he did those 2, and to think Sensei did this when he was only 4. That gives a new meaning to the word badass. "We can't stay here," Emi said. They got up and running forward. They moved until they could barely see anything before them and they did not run into anyone else. They decided that they would set up camp for the night, each taking it in turn to sit up and keep watch. They wanted to finish this quick so they would have to fight through crunch time. Hokage Towers. Naoko ran up to her father's office. He was rarely there, but she could find him anywhere else. She thought that she had saw Jiraiya Gigi. He always brought her back the coolest things when he returns from his trips. He is a bit of a pervert, but that was okay. She had come to learn that most old men were, and at least he was funny about it. "Hokage-sama," a man voice said. She knew that voice. It was Kakashi. "There is someone else I believe knows that the Akatsuki is on their way." "Who?" she heard her father voice said. "Asura something he said makes me believe there is a chance that he is working with them, but I don't want to jump to conclusions," Kakashi said. "We might have to have someone keep an eye on him just to be on the safe side," she heard Jiraiya say. Naoko didn't want to believe it. Asura was too kind to be a part of anything bad. Kakashi was just jealous of Asura because he is stronger, but what about Jiraiya? Her father had always told her that he was one of the strongest ninja in the world. She ran out of the tower looking for Asura, but she couldn't find him anywhere. Back at Battleground 44, it was Kasumi's turn to keep watch. It was hard for her to keep her mind on her duties. Her mind kept wandering to Asura and the kiss. Who the hell did that little blonde bitch think she was anyway? Do that to her sensei, she thought to herself. Why do I even care? I don't like him, she tried to tell herself. But the more she told herself that, the less she started to believe it herself. Before the morning even came, they cleaned up, not wanting to show signs that anyone had been there for any extended period of time. As the sun was rising and just as they went to leave, they were confronted by 3 ninja. 3 ninja from their village. They were happy that it wasn't Kabuto. Anyone but him would do. "We have been looking for you losers," the dirty blonde said, smiling. "I hope you still have your scroll because we have come to take it." Emi didn't even wait for him to finish talking before she made a hand sign. Flower petals danced around them. Their opponents had a dazed look in their eyes. She walked up and took their scroll. "Let's go," she said as if nothing had happened. They all left, leaving their 3 fellow moon shinobi in the genjutsu. Even with the 2 scrolls, their task was only half completed. They still need to make it to the base with both scrolls in hand and everyone in one piece. It was half through the second day and they were surprised to see how many people were already there. But what was even more surprising was who was not there. "Where's Kabuto?" Ryu asked, looking around. "Maybe he just hasn't shown up yet, though I thought he would have had both scrolls by now," Kasumi answered. "Hey, it's the Catman," Ryu shouted, pointing at the puppeteer. "First chance I get I am going to kill you," Kankuro said, glaring at Ryu. "I know what's wrong," Ryu said, smiling. "Yeah, you," Kankuro shouted. "How long has it been since you touched a little boy?" "I know when you arrived you started touching the first little boy you found," Ryu said. "This guy is either really strong or really stupid," Tamari thought as Ryu laughed without a care in the world. "Your mouth is going to get you, kill you of these days," Sasuke said with his usual scowl. "I didn't know why you cared so much," Ryu said, smiling at him. Ryu, stop pissing everyone off, Kasumi said to him. There is only one guy I'm worried about pissing off. Well, two, and neither of them are here, he said, smiling. And who would that be? Naruto asked. Everyone was curious to know who would make him bite his tongue. One is the scariest man in the whole world, he said as a look of horror come over him. Everyone but Neji and Gaara seemed interested. Sensei, and the other is that Kabuto guy. Kabuto? Sakura asked. You are afraid of Kabuto and not Sasuke-kun. Sasuke can't kill a man, bring him back and kill him again, Ryu retorted. Everyone looked at him, not knowing how to take what he had just said. There is not a way to bring back the dead, one of the Chunin said. No, he really did. He killed two ninja from the grass village, then he brought them back to life using some jutsu, Kasumi said, defending her teammate. We saw Kabuto chasing two grass ninja over to us, but they didn't look dead to me, Naruto said. That because he brought them back to life, you idiot, Ryu said. Who are you calling an idiot, you idiot? Naruto snapped. Are we three? Kasumi asked, looking between the two men. More teams started appearing. After the fifth day had passed, everyone who had appeared all lined up before their sensei and the fourth Hokage and the third Hokage. Hello, I am your third Proctor Gecko Hayate, and too many of you have made it past the first two rounds, so we are going to have a preliminaries before moving on to the third round, he said, not looking too good. These preliminaries will be one-on-one fights. Rules: the battle ends when I say it does or one of the fighters is no longer able to continue. You all will be called at random. A large monitor appeared. It stopped showing a picture of Naruto with his name beside him and Kiba. Everyone else went to the balcony overlooking the fight. Begin, Hayate said. Naruto did not give Kiba the chance to prepare his jutsu, attacking him from all sides with his shadow clones. Every time Kiba tried to make a hand sign, one of Naruto's clones would be on the attack. All he could do was defend. Did he really think he could beat the son of the great fourth Hokage? Kasumi heard Ino say. He is a skilled ninja, but would they think as highly of him if he wasn't the Hokage's son? Kasumi wondered to herself. Winner Naruto, the proctor said as Kiba lay on the ground and his dog right beside him. A medical team came down and carried Kiba off to receive treatment. They turned to the monitor once again. The next was Ryu versus Zaku. I guess the people wanted to see a real ninja, Ryu said, jumping down. Zaku followed suit with a cocky grin. Begin, the proctor said. Ryu examined his opponent carefully. He noticed something on Zaku's palm. So that's the key to your jutsu, I bet, Ryu said, smiling. Zaku's grin vanished. Very well then, Ryu said, and then he charged him with speed to match Lee's. Ryu stopped behind Zaku. Water torture jutsu. Everyone but Asura, Kasumi and Emi were wide-eyed as they wondered what he was going to do. Asura was smiling proudly. Kasumi and Emi were covering their faces. He stuck his finger in his mouth, then in his ear, causing Zaku to jump in shock, and everyone watching nearly fell over. What are you teaching them? Kakashi asked Asura, who was trying from keeping from laughing. He just shrugged, afraid if he opened his mouth he wouldn't be able to keep himself from laughing. I just messing with you. All right, let's get this party started, Ryu said, smiling. Why you will pay for that, Zaku said, sounding pissed off. Okay, Ryu said, using his great speed, kicking Zaku in the chest before he reacted. Blood poured from his mouth. Zaku smashed into the wall, hit the floor and did not get back up. He walked over to Zaku. Everyone thought he was going to finish him off. Ryu started poking him. Walk up, you haven't made me pay yet, Ryu said kind of childishly. The winner is Ryu, Hayate said. Well, at least I won. I thought it would have been more fun than that, Ryu said sadly. Emi patted his back to cheer him up. They looked up for the next match, Sasuke versus Dosu. They both made their way to the battlefield, had his usual cocky grin. They could make out Dosu's face. The only bit of if they could see was one of his eye. The battle began. Sasuke dodged Dosu's punch, but he still fell to his knees. He tried to get up, but he fell back down. Look at the great Uchiha. What do you think of my jutsu? It sends sound waves through the air straight to your inner ear, throwing off your balance. This fight is as good as over. Fire release. Great fireball jutsu. Sasuke made the hand sign. Dosu tried to dodge it, but he was not able to fully do so, catching his right arm, destroying the device on it. Sasuke got to his feet, still a little shaken. Now it looks like it is over, Sasuke said. Fire release. Dragon fire jutsu. It hit Dosu in the chest. He was unable to get up again. Sasuke fell to his knees before Asura vanished, appearing beside him and healed Sasuke so he could walk off under his own power as the medical team took care of Dosu. Then he reappeared next to Kakashi, smiling. You have trained your students well, Asura said. I could say the same to you from what I have seen, Kakashi said, as he looked up at the monitor. Kasumi versus Ino. Naruto, if I win can we go on a date? Ino asked, but he didn't hear her. His eyes were fixed on Kasumi. She jumped down, walking to the middle of the battlefield. Neither of them said anything before the battle began. Kasumi had nothing to say to her, and Ino was too mad that she had been ignored. Ino landed the first hit, but it was a water clone that she had hit, and as the clone exploded the water wrapped around Ino so she could move. "Are you sure you want to be a ninja? It seems to me that the only thing that you are focused on is getting the attention of a guy who has no interest in you," Kasumi said, standing behind her. "Just give up, this match is over, you can't beat me." "You think you have won? I am not done yet," Ino shouted. Kasumi shook her head before knocking her out. She started walking back to balcony, the water releasing Ino. Match 5 was Emi vs. Sakura. They both walked down, but that was about as long as the match lasted. 2 seconds later, with a dazed look in the eye, she gave up, and when the look left her eye, Emi was already walking back to the balcony, giving Kasumi and Ryu a V for victory. "Sasuke, how did you get up there so fast?" Sakura asked. He looked confused down at her. "I have been up here." "What are you talking about, Sakura?" Then she seemed to realize what happened as her face turned bright red and she walked back up in silence. "You have trained your students very well," Kakashi said. "Guess what Emi had done to Sakura?" "Emi, what did you do to her?" Ryu asked. "I made her think that if she gave up that Sasuke would take her out on a date," she said, not bothering to keep her voice down, causing Sakura turn a deeper shade of red. Match 6 was between Gaara and Kin. Gaara's sand surrounded him and he reappeared down to the battlefield. Kin walked down looking confident. "This isn't going to end well for her," Asura said, shaking his head. "What do you mean?" Kakashi asked. "He is going to kill her," Asura said. But for Kakashi could say anything, he did just that, crushing her in his sand. The next match was between Shikamaru and Tenten. Shikamaru calmed this to be troublesome, but he won it easily. The next match was Hinata vs Neji. It wasn't even fair. It seemed as if he was doing everything he could do to embarrass Hinata. She kept getting back to her feet, refusing to give up. Neji went to deliver the kill shot. Asura vanished, appeared between the two, blocking the attack. "That's enough, Neji. Are you really trying to kill her for something that she could not control any more than you?" Asura asked. "What has she ever done to you?" Neji did say anything. He just turned and walked away. Asura's hand started to glow golden and he placed it to her chest. For a minute her eyes opened. She sat up looking as if nothing had happened to her. He vanished as the medical team took her to the hospital to make sure that she was completely healed. Lee won his battle with Choji and Shino beat Kankuro to Ryu's disappointment. Tamari made it through on a bye. "Aw, Catman, now I can fight you now," he called to him as he was being carted off to the infirmary. They all went down, standing in front of the Hokage, while Hayate explained the next exam. The third exam is the tournament-style one-on-one combat. Each time you win you advance to the next round. Just because you lose in the first round doesn't mean you won't become a chunin, but the opposite is true. You can win the exam and not become a chunin, but the more times they see you fight the higher your chances become. The rules will be the same, the preliminaries, and it will be in one mouth. That's the end, guys. If you enjoyed, then make sure to leave a comment. This is Chaos Shinobi signing off.